The first thing I noticed was the blue tablecloth. It covered a folding table just inside Appoquinimink Grange Hall, where Megan had arranged name tags in straight rows beside a printed seating chart. Through the closed double doors, I could hear workers setting water glasses on the dinner tables. Someone tested a microphone, and a short burst of feedback came through the wall. I had arrived early because I was supposed to settle the account. My phone buzzed in my shirt pocket while I looked down the list. The message came from the hall's billing system. It showed an unpaid balance of $7,200. I read it twice, then looked at the seating chart again. Zachary and Megan were at the first table. My cousins were listed. Virginia's sister was listed. Relatives who had not answered until the week before had seats. My name wasn't there. Zachary stood a few feet away, holding a cardboard box of programs. When he saw where I was looking, he stopped walking. Megan came through the doors behind him and went quiet too. That was when I understood they both knew something I didn't. My name is Edward Price, and I'm 68 years old. Before I go on, what city are you listening from? I live in Middletown, Delaware, a few minutes from North Broad Street. I spent most of my working life in heating and air conditioning, residential calls, small commercial systems, emergency repairs in August, frozen pipes in January. The kind of work where people are glad to see you until you hand them the invoice. I never minded being useful. That was probably part of the problem. My wife, Virginia, used to say I could hear a bad fan motor through two closed doors, but I couldn't hear when somebody was taking advantage of me. She'd say it while making coffee, usually after I'd agreed to fix something for a relative who had already promised to pay me 3 times. Virginia organized our family reunion for years. I started covering the expenses while she was still alive. At first, it was just the pavilion rental and some food. Then it became tablecloths, printed programs, extra chairs, drinks, ice, and whatever else somebody forgot. Virginia handled the people. I handled the bills. It worked because she knew how to ask directly. If she needed help, she called and said, "Edward and I need you at the hall by 9." She didn't send vague messages about how nice it would be if someone happened to arrive early. She didn't leave tasks floating around until I picked them up. She asked, and people usually did what she asked. When Virginia died, I kept paying for the reunions. I also took over the work she used to do. The first year without her, I spent a week finding everybody's current phone number. The next year, I repaired 2 large coolers, hauled folding tables, and stayed late to sweep the floor. Nobody told me I had to. They just started looking toward me whenever something needed doing. I mistook that for closeness. Zachary is my only son. He was 35 when his mother died. He helped me sort through her clothes, drove me to the funeral home, and stayed at my house the first 2 nights because he didn't think I should be alone. I never forgot that. He could be thoughtful in quiet ways. If my porch light was out, he noticed. If I had an appointment, he remembered the date. But Zachary avoided conflict like it was a live electrical wire. He would stand near an argument, watch it happen, and convince himself that staying silent meant he hadn't chosen a side. Megan understood that about him. She and Zachary had been married for years by then. She was organized, quick with her phone, and good at making plans sound settled before anyone had agreed to them. A typical call from her went like this. "Edward, we're going with the larger room this year. Who decided that?" "Well, everybody wants more space." "Who's everybody?" "You know how the family is." That usually meant Megan wanted something, and Zachary didn't want to discuss it. The reunion at Appoquinimink Grange Hall started with a phone call in the fall before the event. Megan called while I was cleaning the condenser coils on my own heat pump. I had the service panel leaning against the garage wall, and my hands were black around the fingertips. She said, "We need to lock down a proper hall this time. We had a proper hall last time. That place was cramped. It held everybody, barely. People noticed." I wiped my hand on a rag. "What place are you looking at?" "The Grange Hall." I knew it. I'd repaired a rooftop unit there several years earlier. The main room was clean. The kitchen was decent. And the parking lot didn't turn into mud when it rained. I said, "Have you asked what it costs?" "They won't hold the date without a deposit." That wasn't an answer. "How much is the deposit?" $1,800. I looked through the garage toward the kitchen door. Virginia's old grocery list pad still hung beside it. I hadn't used it since she died, but I hadn't taken it down either. "Who's handling the rest?" I asked. "I can do the guest list and catering. Zach can help with setup. Who's paying the balance?" There was a pause. Then Megan said, "We can work that out as we go." That meant me. I should have said no. Instead, I asked her to send me the hall manager's number. Harold Sullivan met me at the Grange Hall 2 days later. He had a gray mustache, a ring of keys clipped to his belt, and the patient manner of a man who had watched families argue over folding chairs for decades. He walked me through the main room. The floor had been polished recently. Afternoon light came through the tall windows along the west wall. The kitchen smelled faintly of bleach and old coffee. Harold said, "Your deposit holds the date. The remaining balance has to be paid before service begins." "Not the day after?" "Before the doors open for the event." I nodded. "That's fair." He showed me where caterers unloaded and which storage room was off limits. Then we sat in his office with the agreement between us. I read contracts slowly, not because I distrust everybody, but because equipment work teaches you what small words can cost. A customer hears new motor. I see voltage, frame size, labor, warranty, and whether the old control board caused the failure. The agreement wasn't complicated. It listed me as the contracting client. There was also a line for a co-host who could speak with the hall about setup, deliveries, and final arrangements. I put Zachary's name there. Harold pointed to a paragraph about changes before service. It covered cancellations, guest count adjustments, and assigning the booking to the named co-host. I read it, understood it, and moved on. At the time, it seemed like ordinary paperwork. I signed both copies. Harold signed them after me and slid one across the desk. "You keeping this yourself?" he asked. "I keep everything." He smiled. "Then you're easier to work with than most." I paid the deposit and carried my copy home in a plain white envelope. I put it in the middle drawer of my desk, behind the folder containing the property tax receipts. That agreement didn't feel powerful. It felt like another bill I had agreed to handle. Megan was pleased when I told her the date was secured. "Perfect," she said. "Now I can actually plan. You said Zach would help. He will. Have him call me. He's sitting right here." I waited. In the background, I heard Zachary say, "Tell Dad I said thanks." I said, "He can tell me himself." A few seconds later, Zachary came on the phone. "Hey Dad, thanks for doing that. You're listed as co-host." "Okay, that means Harold may call you about deliveries or setup." "Sure, whatever you need." I almost corrected him. It wasn't supposed to be whatever I needed. It was supposed to be something he was helping run. But he sounded distracted, and I let it go. For the next several weeks, Megan sent updates without asking questions. She chose a caterer. She increased the guest estimate. She added upgraded linens because the standard ones looked cheap in photographs. Then she ordered printed programs with a family photograph on the cover. The photograph was from a reunion Virginia had organized. Virginia stood near the center in a yellow blouse, one hand raised because she had been telling the person with the camera to wait. I was beside her, looking in the wrong direction. Megan cropped me out. I noticed when she texted the sample. I called Zachary. "Did you see the program cover?" "Yeah, it looks nice." "Your mother's standing beside half an arm." He was quiet for a second. Megan had to make the picture fit. There were other pictures. "I guess she liked that one." "You guess?" "Dad, it's just the cover." That answer stayed with me longer than it should have. I didn't demand that they change it. I asked Megan to send me the full cost estimate instead. She replied with a thumbs up symbol. No estimate came. A week later, she stopped by my house on a Saturday morning. She brought a binder, 2 coffee cups, and a stack of glossy pamphlets. I thought they were catering menus until she spread them across my kitchen table. They were for senior living communities. One had a smiling gray-haired couple walking beside a pond. Another advertised medication reminders, prepared meals, and transportation to appointments. I looked at the pamphlets, then at Megan. "What are these?" "Oh, those. A woman at work had extras." "Why are they on my table?" She took a slow drink of coffee. "I thought you might want to see what's available around here. I have a house. I know that. I cook. I didn't say you couldn't cook. I drive." "Edward, nobody is saying you need to move tomorrow." That word caught my attention. "Tomorrow?" She looked toward the hallway, as if Zachary might appear from my laundry room and rescue the conversation. "You're alone here," she said. "It doesn't hurt to know your options." I didn't ask for options. Her face tightened, but her voice stayed sweet. "We're trying to think ahead." "We?" "Zach and me." I picked up the pamphlets and held them out to her. "Then you and Zach can think ahead at your house." She didn't take them. "Just keep them," she said. "There's no pressure. I don't want them. You may feel differently later." I laid them on top of her binder. For once, I didn't soften it. "Take them with you, Megan." She stared at me for a moment, then pushed the pamphlets into her bag. The binder stayed open. On the first page was a handwritten reunion budget. I saw several amounts before she closed it. The catering estimate was much higher than she'd suggested. The linen charge was separate. There were fees for cleanup, coffee service, and equipment rental. My name appeared at the top beside the words, "Responsible Party." I put one hand on the binder before she could pull it away. "Leave this. It's my planning binder. It has my name on the bills. I'm still working on the numbers. Then send me copies today." She gave a small laugh. "You don't trust me? I'm asking what I'm expected to pay. It's a family reunion, Edward. That doesn't answer me." She pulled the binder free. "I'll email everything when it's final." After she left, I stood at the kitchen window and watched her back out of my driveway. She was already on her phone before she reached the street. That evening, Zachary called. "Megan said you were rude to her. She brought me retirement home pamphlets and wouldn't show me the reunion budget. She was only trying to help." With which part, he exhaled. "Why does every conversation have to become a test?" I asked a direct question. "She's doing a lot of work. So am I." "I know, Dad. No, you know I paid the deposit. You don't know what else is being put in my name." He didn't respond. I waited long enough to hear the faint sound of their television. Finally, he said, "I'll tell her to send you the numbers. Don't tell her. You're the co-host. You send them." Another pause. "Okay," he said. The next morning, I received 3 invoices from Zachary's email address. They didn't include the final guest count or seating plan, but I had enough to total the current expenses myself. The reunion was already well beyond what we had discussed. I printed the invoices and placed them beside the signed venue agreement in my desk. Then, I sent one message to both of them. "Before I pay any remaining balance, I want the full budget and final seating chart." Megan replied within 2 minutes. "Why do you need the seating chart?" I looked at that question for a while. Then I typed back, "Because I'm paying for the room," Megan called before I had put my phone down. "What is that supposed to mean?" "It means I want to see what I'm buying." "You're not buying a seat, Edward. You're helping with a family event." "Then show me the family event." I already sent invoices. Zachary sent 3 invoices. There's no guest count. There's no seating chart. There's no final total. She lowered her voice. "This is exactly why I didn't want to send unfinished paperwork. Because I might read it, because you turn everything into an audit." I sat at my desk with the agreement drawer still open. "I asked for 2 things," I said. "The full budget and the seating chart. The seating chart isn't ready." "When will it be ready?" "Closer to the reunion. Send it when it is." She let out a hard breath. "Fine." Then she hung up. About 10 minutes later, Zachary texted me. "Please don't make this harder than it needs to be." I called him instead of answering. He picked up on the 4th ring. "What am I making harder?" I asked. "I'm at work, Dad." "You sent the message. I just mean Megan has a system." "What system?" "She's planning everything in stages. Then she should be able to show me the stage she's in." He didn't say anything. I could hear office noise behind him. A printer started, then stopped. I said, "Did you look at those invoices before you sent them?" "Of course." "What's the current total?" He hesitated. That was enough of an answer. "You didn't look," I said. I glanced at them. "What's the cleanup fee?" "I don't remember every line." "What's the guest count?" "Megan has that." "You're the co-host." "I know. Do you?" His voice changed. Not angry exactly. Tired. "Can we talk about this later?" "When?" "Tonight." He didn't call that night. 2 evenings later, the temperature dropped hard. I was in my living room watching the weather report when Zachary called. "Dad, are you busy?" That question always meant something had stopped working. "What happened?" "The heat pump is making that sound again." "What sound?" "The grinding one. Is the outdoor fan running?" "I don't know. Look through the top grill." There was a pause while he walked outside. Megan's voice came faintly through the phone. "Is he coming?" Zachary said. "Hold on." Then he came back to me. "The fan isn't moving. Turn the system off at the thermostat. Can you come over?" I looked toward the dark window. Cold rain had started tapping against the glass. "Did you turn it off?" "I'm doing it now." I knew their system. It was old but serviceable. I had replaced the capacitor the previous summer and warned them the fan motor was getting weak. I put on my work coat. "I'll be there in 20 minutes. Their house was warm enough when I arrived, but the temperature was falling. Zachary met me in the garage with a flashlight. Megan stayed in the kitchen with her laptop. I checked the disconnect, removed the service panel, and tested the motor. It had failed. Zachary stood beside me with his hands in his pockets. "Can you get it running tonight?" "I have a used motor at home that should fit. How long will that take? If it fits, an hour." He nodded, relieved. I drove home, found the motor on a shelf, and returned with it. The rain was heavier by then. Water ran down the back of my neck while I worked under the edge of their roof. Zachary held the flashlight for about 5 minutes. Then Megan called him inside. I installed the motor alone. When I turned the system back on, the fan started smoothly. Warm air came through the kitchen vents a few minutes later. Zachary smiled. "I knew you'd figure it out." That sentence felt good. It still does, if I'm honest. Megan closed her laptop. "Since you're here, we should go through the catering options." I looked at the clock on their stove. It was almost 9. "I haven't eaten yet." "I can heat up some soup," she said. Zachary opened the refrigerator. "We've got leftover chicken too." So I stayed. Megan served soup into a wide white bowl and set it beside her laptop. Before I took the second spoonful, she turned the screen toward me. The caterer offered 3 packages. She had selected the most expensive one. I pointed to the price. This wasn't in the invoices Zach sent. It's an updated quote. "When did you get it?" "Yesterday." "Why did it go up?" The original package was too basic. What was wrong with it? No coffee station, no dessert service, plastic serving utensils. I looked at Zachary. He was eating chicken at the counter. "Do we need dessert service?" He shrugged. "It's nice to have. Is it worth another $900? Megan said. "It's not just dessert." "I know. It includes coffee and metal spoons." She leaned back in her chair. "You're being dismissive." "I'm being specific. We have people driving from out of state. They can drink coffee from a regular pot. It's 1 day a year." I set down my spoon. "Everything is 1 day a year when you say it separately." She stared at me. I continued. "The linens are 1 day. The programs are 1 day. Dessert service is 1 day. Put it together, and it's my money for more than 1 day." Zachary wiped his hands on a paper towel. "Maybe we can cut something else." "What?" I asked. He looked toward Megan. She closed the laptop halfway. "We can decide later." "I'm not approving that package. I didn't ask you to approve it. You showed me the price while I'm sitting here eating your soup. I was keeping you informed. No, keeping me informed would mean sending the whole budget." Megan pushed back from the table. "Then don't pay for dessert. That's what I just said." She picked up her laptop and left the kitchen. Zachary watched her go. After a moment, he said, "You could have handled that better." I looked at him. My coat was hanging over a chair, still dripping rainwater onto their floor. "Your heat is working. I appreciate that." "The motor costs money. I know. Tell me how much." I nearly said not to worry about it. The words were ready. I had said them so many times that they came before the thought. Instead, I told him the price. Zachary blinked. "That much for a used motor? That much for the motor. I'm not charging labor, okay?" He took out his phone and sent the money while I sat there. The notification appeared before I finished my soup. It wasn't a large victory. He owed me for a part, and he paid me for a part. That should have been ordinary, but I noticed how uncomfortable it made both of us. On the drive home, I thought about all the times I had refused payment. A thermostat for his first apartment. A compressor repair after he and Megan got married. The water heater I replaced over one long Saturday because the plumber's quote seemed too high. Every time Zachary had offered something, every time I had waved it away. I told myself that fathers took care of their sons. That was true. I also liked the way he looked at me when I solved something. For an hour or two, there was no distance between us. He needed me, and I knew exactly what to do. At home, I hung my wet coat in the laundry room. Virginia's old yellow raincoat was still on the hook behind it. I hadn't meant to leave it there for 5 years. After a while, moving it felt more deliberate than leaving it. I touched the sleeve, then went into the kitchen. Virginia had seen the pattern long before I did. A few years before she died, we were cleaning up after a reunion. Everyone else had left. I was carrying trash bags toward the dumpster while she counted serving trays. She said, "You paid for the room, fixed the refrigerator, and hauled the tables. The refrigerator took 10 minutes. That isn't my point." "What's your point?" "My point is, you don't have to earn your chair." I laughed because I thought she was teasing me. She wasn't. She put down the clipboard and said, "You know they love you, right?" "Of course." "Then let them love you when you aren't carrying something." At the time, I thought she was worrying over nothing. People had different ways of contributing. I had money, tools, and a truck. Why wouldn't I use them? After she died, those jobs became invitations. Someone called because a freezer wasn't cooling. I stayed for coffee after fixing it. Someone asked me to pick up tables. I got included in lunch. Megan needed help pricing generators for an outdoor reunion. She called me 3 times that week. Nobody was doing it on purpose, or at least I didn't think they were. That made it harder to see. I went through my phone that night. I looked at my messages with Zachary from the previous 6 months. There were pictures of equipment labels, a question about a breaker, and a request to borrow my truck. There were reunion links from Megan that Zachary had forwarded without comment. I found one message where I had asked him to meet me for breakfast. He had replied, "Busy this weekend. Soon." The next message, 4 days later, asked whether I still had a pipe threader. I sat at the kitchen table with the phone in my hand. The part that bothered me wasn't that he needed help. I liked helping him. The part that bothered me was how quickly he answered when the subject was a tool. The next Sunday, I tried something simple. I called around 10 in the morning. Zachary answered, "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine. Is the heat acting up?" "No." He waited. I said, "You want to get coffee? Today?" "Yes." "What for?" That question landed harder than it should have. "For coffee?" "Oh, I can't today. Megan and I are working on reunion stuff. I'm part of the reunion stuff. You know what I mean?" "Not really." He lowered his voice. "She's still upset about the catering conversation. Does that prevent coffee?" "No, but I don't want to start another thing. I didn't ask you to bring her. That would definitely start another thing." I looked across my empty kitchen. "Another time, then?" "Yeah, definitely." Before we hung up, I asked, "Why do you assume I'm paying the entire balance?" He didn't answer immediately. Then he said, "Because you always do." "Did Megan tell the caterer that?" "I don't know." "You do know." He sighed. "She probably told them you handle payment." "Without asking me?" "We thought that was the plan." "Whose plan?" "Dad, come on." "No, I want an answer." He went quiet again. When he finally spoke, his voice was softer. "You've paid every year since Mom was running it. After she died, you kept doing it. Nobody thought this year was different. There it was. Not a scheme, not yet. A habit I had built, reinforced, and paid for. I said, "This year is different." "How? I'm not paying bills I haven't approved. That's fair. And I want the final seating chart. I'll talk to Megan. You're the co-host. Don't talk to her for me. Get the chart and send it." "All right. When?" "By the end of the week." It was the first clear answer he had given me. After the call, I opened the reunion spreadsheet Megan had finally shared through a link. She had allowed me to view it, but not edit it. The guest list showed confirmed names and meal selections. The seating page was locked. I could see the tab, but when I clicked it, a message said I didn't have permission. I took a screenshot. Then I went back to the budget and added the charges myself. The current total left almost nothing beyond the hall balance. That meant Megan either expected me to cover the extras separately, or she had promised things that weren't funded. I sent Zachary the total. He replied, "That can't be right." I wrote, "Check it." 20 minutes later, he called. "You're right," he said. "She counted the deposit twice. That explained $1,800 of money they thought they had." "What are you cutting?" I asked. "I don't know yet. Choose something. We'll look at it tonight." "No?" "You choose one thing now." He sounded surprised. "Why me?" "Because your name is on the agreement." He was silent for a few seconds. Then he said, "Cut the upgraded linens. Tell Megan. She's going to be upset. Then be the person who made the choice." He let out a long breath. "Fine. I'll tell her." An hour later, the spreadsheet changed. The upgraded linen charge disappeared. Megan didn't message me. Zachary didn't call again. I printed the revised page and put it in my desk. Then I made a list of every reunion task still open. Setup, check-in, caterer arrival, coffee, cleanup, and final payment. Besides setup, I wrote Zachary's name. For the first time, I left it there without adding mine underneath. The next morning, Megan restored the linen charge. I saw it because the spreadsheet was still open on my computer. The page refreshed while I was drinking coffee. One moment, the line was gone. The next moment, it was back, marked approved in green. I checked the edit history. Megan had restored it at 7:12 that morning. Beside her change, she had written, "Required for room presentation." I called Zachary. "Did you tell her you cut the linens?" "Yes." She put them back. "I know. What did you say?" "She thinks we need them." That wasn't my question. He sounded like he was walking. A car door opened, then shut. I said we were over budget. "And?" She said she'll find savings somewhere else. "Where?" "I don't know yet." Then nothing was cut. "Dad, I have to get inside. Your choice lasted less than a day. I'll handle it." He ended the call before I could answer. At noon, I opened my email and searched for every message from the Grange Hall. I had the original receipt and a copy of the signed agreement. After that, nothing. There should have been more. The agreement said updated estimates would be sent when the guest count or room setup changed. I already knew both had changed. The larger catering package required extra service tables. Megan had also added people to the guest list. I checked my junk folder. Nothing was there. Then I searched my paper files. I kept a basket near the front door for mail that needed attention. Utility bills went there until I paid them. Insurance notices went into a separate folder. I found no hall statement. I called Harold. He answered from his office. "Appoquinimink Grange Hall, this is Harold." "Harold, it's Edward Price." "Good afternoon, Edward. What can I do for you? I need the latest account statement for the reunion." "Certainly. Megan should have the current copy." "I need my copy." There was a short silence. "All right," he said. "Let me bring up the booking." I heard him typing. He said, "The last update went out 9 days ago. It didn't come to me. It went to the contact address on the event file." "Which address?" He read Zachary and Megan's home address. I straightened in my chair. "Why is their address on my account?" "Let me look at the activity notes." More typing. Harold said, "I have a request to consolidate event correspondence with the planning contact." "Who made that request?" "It came through Zachary's email." "What did it say?" "I can't read you somebody else's email, word for word." The event updates were to go to his home address and Megan's email. Billing notices would remain attached to the client account. I'm the client, yes. But the notices weren't sent to me. The final invoice will still go to you. I'm asking about everything before the final invoice. He went quiet again. Then he said, "I understand. Did I authorize the change?" The request came from the co-host. "That isn't what I asked. No, I don't have a separate authorization from you." I looked at the signed agreement on my desk. "Put my mailing address back. I can do that. And restore my email as the main contact. That may mean they receive duplicate notices. That's fine. Would you like Zachary removed as co-host?" "No." I answered quickly because I didn't want Harold to mistake the issue. Zachary's name belonged on the agreement. I wanted him to act like it belonged there. Removing him would put everything back on me. Harold said, "All right, I'll keep his event access and restore your billing access. Can I come by and pick up everything I missed? I can print the file. What time are you there until?" 5. I'll be there before 4. That was my deliberate move. I stopped asking Zachary and Megan to provide information they had already decided to manage. I went to the place holding the original records. It worked. Harold had a folder waiting when I arrived. The main room was empty except for a row of folded tables against one wall. Someone had left a floor buffer near the kitchen doors. He led me into his office and handed me the folder. On top was an updated estimate. Under that was a room layout, a delivery schedule, and copies of 4 account notices. I sat in the same chair I had used when I signed the agreement. Harold said, "I also restored your online access. You should get an email asking you to set a new password." My phone buzzed. The email was there. I opened the link and created the password while he watched. When the account page loaded, my name appeared at the top again. "Thank you," I said. "I'm sorry for the confusion." "It wasn't your confusion." He leaned back in his chair. "I work with whoever the client authorizes. Your agreement names Zachary as co-host, so we treated his request as an event management change. We should not have let that affect your copies." "I understand." I turned to the updated estimate. The guest count had increased by 14 people since the original booking. "Who added these?" "We don't have names. We only track the number." "When did the number change?" He pointed to the date. "Last week." The added guests meant more chairs, 2 more dinner tables, and a larger room reset fee after the event. That was another charge I hadn't seen in the spreadsheet. I pointed to it. Is this in the total Megan has? It's in the hall estimate. That isn't what I asked. I couldn't tell you what's in her budget. Has she approved this layout? She and Zachary attended a walkthrough. I looked at him. When? Last Thursday evening. I had spoken to Zachary that Thursday. He had told me he was working late. Were they both here? Yes. What did they do? They reviewed the entrance setup, catering access, and table placement. Megan had a preliminary seating diagram on her laptop. She wanted to make sure the tables fit. Did she give you a copy? No. We don't need guest names. We only need the final count. That was useful information, but it left the question I cared about unanswered. When is the final count due? 10 days before the reunion. Once that count is locked, the service total is locked too. And the balance? Before service begins, as we discussed. I turned to the delivery schedule. The caterer was arriving 2 hours before the doors opened. A rental company would bring linens and coffee equipment that morning. The program printer had requested access to place boxes near the check-in table. Everyone seemed to know where they were supposed to be, except me. Harold tapped the room layout. There's one other issue you should know about. What issue? The current guest count is close to the comfortable limit for this setup. They can add a few more people, but not another table without changing the aisle clearance. Did you tell them? I told Megan during the walkthrough. What did she say? She said the seating would work. That explained why she had locked the seating page. The chart wasn't merely unfinished. It was being used to decide which people fit. I closed the folder. Send me every change from now on. I will, even if it looks minor. All changes. He turned his monitor slightly so I could see my email address marked as the primary contact. That was the small piece of access I recovered. My own name was back on my own account. It should never have required a trip across town. Before I left, Harold said, families sometimes divide responsibilities in ways that aren't obvious from the agreement. I'm starting to notice that. Outside, I sat in my truck and read the activity sheet again. The request to change correspondence had been made the same day I first asked Megan for the complete budget. That timing removed any possibility that it had been an innocent convenience arranged weeks earlier. They had moved the information after I asked to see it. I called Zachary from the parking lot. He answered with, "What now?" "I'm at the Grange Hall." His tone changed immediately. "Why?" "I picked up the notices that were sent to your house." "Oh, why did you change the mailing address?" "I didn't change your mailing address. You changed the event mailing address. That's different. Not when my name is on the account." He sighed. Megan was getting some things by email and some things by mail. It was easier to keep everything together. "Then why didn't you tell me?" "I didn't think it mattered. You requested the change after I asked for the budget. I don't remember the exact day. I have the exact day in front of me." He was quiet. I said, "You told Harold to send my account notices to your house. I told him to send reunion paperwork here. Why?" "So, you wouldn't get buried in details." That phrase didn't sound like Zachary. "Whose words are those?" "What?" "Buried in details." "Who said that?" He didn't answer. I continued. "You know I've handled service contracts for most of my life. I know. You know I keep records. Yes. You know I asked for the details. I was trying to make things easier. For me, for everybody. That usually means Megan. Don't do that." "Do what?" "Make her the problem every time we disagree. I'm asking about something you did." He lowered his voice. "She thought you were getting too focused on every little charge." "I'm paying every little charge." "You don't have to keep saying that." "Apparently I do." A truck pulled into the hall parking lot and stopped near the kitchen entrance. I watched the driver get out with a clipboard. I said, "Did you know there are 14 additional guests?" "Yes." "Who are they?" "Mostly Megan's side." "Mostly?" "I don't know every name. Did you invite anyone?" "A few people." "Who?" He named 2 adult cousins and an uncle. The rest had come from Megan. "Did you approve the larger layout?" I asked. We looked at it. "Did you approve it?" "Megan handled the seating. You were standing in the room." "What do you want me to say?" "The truth would be useful." I said it looked fine. That's approval. "Okay, then I approved it." He sounded irritated, but at least he owned the sentence. I asked, "Why did you tell me you were working late that evening?" "I did work late. You were here at the hall." "After work, you left that part out." "I didn't know I had to report my movements." "You don't. But you knew I was asking for a seating chart while you were looking at one." "It wasn't final. Did you see my name on it?" The question came out before I had decided to ask it. He took too long. Then he said, I wasn't checking individual names. I didn't know whether that was true. I still didn't know my seat had been removed. At that point, I thought Megan was hiding costs, controlling access, and treating me like a source of payment rather than a host. That was enough to make me pay attention, but not enough to tell me what was coming. I said, send me the chart you saw. I don't have it. Ask Megan. She said it isn't ready. You just looked at it in the hall. A draft, Dad. It was a draft. Send the draft. I'll talk to her. No, send me a copy. He became quiet again. Finally, he said, I have to go. So do I. I ended the call. On the drive home, my phone buzzed twice. The first message was from Harold, confirming that my billing address and email had been restored. The second was from Megan. Going around us to Harold was unnecessary and embarrassing. I waited until I was parked in my driveway before replying. I contacted the hall account in my name. She responded almost immediately. You're acting like we're stealing from you. I read that sentence carefully. I had not used the word stealing. I hadn't accused either of them of taking money. I had asked for records and restored my contact information. I typed, send the seating draft. The typing indicator appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Her answer finally came. There is no usable draft yet. That directly contradicted what Harold had seen on her laptop. I carried the folder inside and placed it on my kitchen table. Then I opened my laptop, signed into the restored hall account, and downloaded every notice. I created a new folder for the reunion. I saved the estimates, the layout, the delivery schedule, and Harold's confirmation. After that, I wrote 3 dates on a sheet of paper. The day I requested the budget, the day Zachary redirected the event correspondence, the day he and Megan reviewed the seating layout without telling me. I wasn't trying to catch them in a crime. I still hoped there was a reasonable explanation for most of it. But I was no longer waiting for them to decide which details I was allowed to see. The next morning, I sent Harold a short email. No change that increases the hall total is approved without my written consent. Do not change the billing contact again unless I request it myself. He replied within half an hour. Understood. Current estimate is frozen pending written approval. I printed that email too. The upgraded linens were still listed in Megan's spreadsheet, but they were no longer part of the hall estimate. The extra 2 tables remained because the guest count had already increased. I couldn't undo that without knowing who had been invited. At least the number had stopped growing. Megan discovered the freeze that afternoon. She called while I was replacing a filter in my hallway return vent. Harold says he can't process changes. He can process them after I approve them. You've made it impossible for me to plan. I've made it impossible to spend more of my money without asking. What happens if the caterer changes something? Send it to me. What if you don't answer fast enough? I answer my phone. You didn't answer me Tuesday morning. I was on a roof. That's exactly what I mean. I can't organize an event around your work schedule. Then don't increase the cost. She became quiet. I slid the new filter into place and closed the grill. Finally, she said, Zachary is the co-host. He still is. Then he should be able to approve changes. He can approve anything he intends to pay for. That isn't how families work. It's how invoices work. She hung up again. That evening, the shared spreadsheet disappeared from my account. When I clicked the link, it said the owner had removed my access. I took a picture of the screen with my phone. Then I emailed Megan and Zachary together. My access to the reunion budget has been removed. Restore it by tomorrow evening. Zachary called 5 minutes later. Why are you putting everything in writing? Because things keep changing. Megan removed you because you froze the hall account. She removed me from a budget with my name on it. She's frustrated. So am I. This is turning into a control thing. It became a control thing when my mail went to your house. He lowered his voice. Can we come over Saturday? For what? To talk? About the reunion? About everything. I looked at Virginia's grocery pad near the kitchen door. Just you and Megan? Yes. What time? 11. All right. On Saturday morning, I made coffee for 3 people. At 10:55, a silver car pulled into my driveway behind Zachary's. A woman stepped out carrying a leather folder. She wore dark slacks, a pale sweater, and flat shoes. I watched through the front window as Megan greeted her. When I opened the door, Zachary was already on the porch. You said just you and Megan. She's here to help. With what? Megan came up the steps with the woman. This is Dana, she said. She works with families during transitions. The woman held out her hand. It's nice to meet you, Edward. I didn't take her hand right away. What transition? Her smile weakened. Megan answered for her. Can we sit down before you decide this is an attack? I haven't decided anything. I asked who she is. Dana said, I'm an independent senior living consultant. There it was. I looked at Zachary. You brought a senior living consultant to my house. It's just a conversation, he said. Did you tell her I agreed to it? He rubbed his palms against his jeans. Megan stepped closer. Nobody is forcing you to do anything. That isn't an answer? Dana shifted the folder against her chest. I was told you were open to discussing some support options. Who told you that? She looked toward Megan. I stepped aside and let them in. I didn't do that because I liked the situation. I wanted to hear what had already been said. Dana sat at the kitchen table. Zachary and Megan took the chairs across from her. I remained standing near the counter. The coffee I had made sat untouched. Dana opened her folder. My role is really to help families talk through practical needs. Home maintenance, transportation, bill management, meal planning, social isolation. I maintain my home, I said. Of course. I drive. I understand. I pay my bills. Megan said, This isn't an interrogation, Edward. It feels like one because I'm answering claims nobody has stated. Dana closed the folder halfway. Maybe we should start with what concerns brought everyone together. I didn't bring everyone together. Zachary looked down at the table. Megan folded her arms. We're concerned about the way you've been acting. What way? You're suspicious of everything. Give me an example. You drove to the hall and demanded records. I asked for copies of my account. You froze the planning. I froze new charges. You keep insisting people are hiding things. I found out my account notices were being sent to your house. Dana turned to Megan. Was the billing address changed? The event correspondence was consolidated, Megan said. That wasn't the question, I said. Dana looked at me again. Were you aware of the change? No. She picked up her pen but didn't write. I said, What were you told before you came here? Megan answered quickly. We don't need to go through every private conversation. It stopped being private when you brought her into my kitchen. Dana glanced at the three of us. I think Edward deserves to understand the basis of the meeting. Megan's mouth tightened. Dana continued. I was told there had been increasing confusion around financial paperwork. I was also told some bills were being duplicated or missed. Which bills? I wasn't given specific account numbers. Was the reunion mentioned? Yes. What were you told? She chose her words carefully. That you had agreed to cover the event, then became uncertain about expenses you had previously approved. I went to my desk. Zachary stood up. Dad, you don't need to prove anything. That's why she's here. I returned with the folder from the Grange Hall. I placed the signed agreement, updated estimates, and correspondence log on the table. I showed Dana the original estimate first. This is what I agreed to. Then I placed the updated version beside it. This is what was added. I pointed to the guest count, tables, and service fees. I asked for the budget after these changes appeared. The event correspondence was redirected that same day. Dana read the activity sheet. Megan said, That doesn't show the whole situation. What's missing? I asked. You've always paid for the reunion. That doesn't approve every new charge. Nobody said it did. You told her I approved them and forgot. I said you were becoming confused. About what? She looked at the paperwork but didn't answer. I turned to Dana. Were you told my wife died? Yes. Were you told that happened 5 years ago? I was told you had struggled since her death. Did they tell you I still work? No. Did they tell you I repaired their heat pump last week? Dana looked toward Zachary. He said, That isn't relevant. It's relevant if you're telling people I can't manage my house. Megan leaned forward. Nobody said you can't change a motor. You've done that your whole life. This is about judgment. What judgment? You're damaging relationships over a seating chart. I haven't seen the seating chart, because it isn't final. Harold watched you use it during the walkthrough. Her eyes moved away from mine. That was the first time I saw her realize I had spoken to Harold in detail. She said, It was a rough layout. Then why remove my access to the budget? You were interfering. With my own account. With the event. Dana placed her pen inside the folder. I don't think this consultation can continue. Megan turned to her. We've barely started. I understood that Edward had agreed to meet. He agreed to talk with us. He agreed to talk with you and Zachary. Megan's face reddened. Dana stood. I'm happy to provide general information if Edward requests it. I'm not comfortable assessing needs without his consent. I don't need an assessment, I said. I understand. She handed me a business card. I apologize for the misunderstanding. Then she left. Her car backed out of my driveway less than 20 minutes after she had arrived. I closed the front door and returned to the kitchen. Zachary remained standing. Megan was gathering the paperwork into a stack as if it belonged to her. I put my hand on the folder. Leave that. She released it. Zachary said, "We were trying to help." "No, you were trying to have a stranger confirm something you'd already decided." "We haven't decided anything." "What did you expect her to do?" He looked at Megan. I waited. Megan said, "We wanted an objective opinion, based on information you supplied. We told her what we've observed. You told her I missed bills. You lose track of things." "Which things?" "You forgot we discussed the upgraded catering." "We never discussed it." "We did." "When?" "At dinner." "You showed it to me after I repaired your heat." "I said I wasn't approving it." "You were tired. That doesn't make yes come out as no." Zachary stepped between the table and the counter. "Everybody needs to calm down." I looked at him. "Did you know what Megan told Dana?" "I knew some of it." "Did you know she said I missed bills?" "She said you were getting overwhelmed. Did you agree?" "I thought talking to somebody might help." "Help whom?" He pressed his lips together. I said, "You changed the hall contact. You attended a walkthrough without telling me. You kept the seating chart from me. Now you brought someone here to question whether I can manage paperwork. That's not how we see it. It's what happened." Megan picked up her purse. "This is pointless. No, this is the first clear conversation we've had." She put the strap over her shoulder. "You don't want help. You want obedience. I want consent." She looked at Zachary. "Are you coming?" He didn't move at first. I said, "Before you leave, I need both of you to hear me." Megan reached for the door but stopped. "No one changes my mail," I said. "No one discusses my finances, health, or living arrangements with a professional unless I agree first. No one schedules a visit to my house under false pretenses." Zachary said, "We didn't use false pretenses. You told me 2 people were coming. 3 arrived. We knew you wouldn't meet her otherwise. That's the false part." He looked down. I continued, "If you're concerned about me, ask me directly." Megan gave a short laugh. "You don't listen. You haven't asked. We shouldn't have to wait until something goes wrong. What do you think is going wrong? You're becoming fixated and combative. I asked for documents. You keep saying that, like it explains everything. It explains this." I tapped the folder. Zachary opened the front door. "We should go," I said. "Restore my access to the spreadsheet." Megan walked onto the porch without answering. Zachary stayed inside. "I'll do it," he said, "today." "Okay. And I want the seating chart before the final guest deadline. I know." "No, tell me." He looked uncomfortable. "I'll send you the seating chart before the deadline." "That's a direct promise." "Yes." He left. At 3 that afternoon, my spreadsheet access returned. This time, I could see the edit history again. The seating tab remained locked, but the budget was visible. I checked every line against Harold's estimate. Megan had added 2 separate charges that weren't going through the hall. One was for printed favors. The other was a photography package. Neither had been paid. I added a note beside both. Not approved. Within minutes, Megan changed my access from editor back to viewer. I didn't argue about it. I could still see the information, which was what I needed. Then an email arrived from Harold. He confirmed that the current estimate would remain frozen. He also reminded me that final guest numbers were due in less than 3 weeks. If I didn't approve changes by then, the hall would use the existing count and layout. The full balance would still have to be settled before the doors opened. My boundary had worked. It also meant I couldn't stay on the edge of the planning anymore. Every new request would come to me. Every refusal would be visible. Zachary and Megan could no longer tell themselves the bill simply handled itself. Just before dinner, Dana called. "I wanted to make sure you were all right after this morning," she said. "I'm fine. There's one thing I think you should know." I waited. The consultation form included a question about legal planning if a family member can no longer manage financial decisions. My hand tightened around the phone. Who completed that part? Megan submitted the form. Zachary was listed as the main family contact. What answer did she give? She marked that the family was considering options. What options? She didn't specify. After the call, I locked the hall folder in my desk and put the key on my ring. The reunion was no longer the only decision they were trying to make around me. The following Monday, I called Dana and asked for a copy of the form Megan had submitted. Dana hesitated. I need to check whether I'm permitted to release it. My name is on it, yes, but Megan completed it. She completed an assessment request about me without my permission. I understand your concern. I'm not asking for her private records. I'm asking what she told you about me. Dana said she would review it and call back. 2 hours later, an email arrived with the form attached. She had removed Megan's phone number and a few notes about scheduling. Everything concerning me remained. I printed it. The first page asked why the family was requesting a consultation. Megan had selected financial confusion, resistance to assistance, social isolation, and home safety concerns. Under recent examples, she had written that I was forgetting conversations about expenses and reversing decisions after agreeing to them. She also wrote that I had become suspicious when family members tried to help manage routine correspondence. Routine correspondence. That was how she described moving the hall notices to her house. A section near the bottom asked whether other relatives supported the request. Megan had selected yes. Zachary's name appeared as the main family contact. Beside it was an electronic acknowledgement dated 3 days before they came to my house. I called him. "Can you meet me after work? What's wrong? I want to talk without Megan." He went quiet. "About what?" "The form you signed." Another pause. "Where did you get it?" Dana sent it. "She wasn't supposed to do that." "Why not?" "I don't know. I just didn't think she would." "Can you meet me?" He agreed to meet at a small diner near North Broad Street. I arrived first and took a booth near the back. I brought the form in a brown envelope and kept it beside me on the seat. Zachary came in wearing his work clothes. He looked tired. He sat across from me and ordered coffee. I waited until the server walked away. "Did you read the form before you signed it?" "I didn't sign it. Your electronic acknowledgement is on it. That was just the contact section." "Did you read it?" He rubbed the edge of the paper placemat with his thumb. Megan filled it out. "That wasn't my question." "No, I didn't read every part." I took the form from the envelope and placed it between us. "Read it now." "Dad?" "Read what has your name on it." He looked at the first page. His eyes moved down the list of selected concerns. When he reached the examples, he frowned. "She made it sound worse than it is." "What part is true?" "You have been more suspicious." "About the mail she redirected?" He didn't answer. "What financial conversation did I forget?" "I don't know." "What decision did I approve and reverse?" "The catering." "I said no at your kitchen table, I remember." "Then why did you let her say I forgot?" "I didn't know she wrote that." The server brought his coffee. Zachary thanked her, then waited until she left again. I pointed to the box marked Home Safety. "What is unsafe about my house?" "The railing on your porch is a little loose. It has a 1/4 inch of movement. You said you were going to fix it." "I will. You keep putting it off. I've had service calls." He looked down at the form. I said, "A loose railing isn't proof that I can't manage money." "I didn't say it was." "Your name says you support this." "I thought we were getting information." "You brought the consultant into my house without telling me." "I knew you wouldn't agree if we told you." "That should have ended the plan." He wrapped both hands around his coffee cup. "Megan thinks you're lonely. That isn't on the form." "It is." "Social isolation? I asked you for coffee." His face changed. "That's not fair? It happened. I was busy. You were working on a reunion I'm paying for. We're back to the money again. You keep making the money the price of my involvement. Nobody is doing that. Then send me the seating draft." He looked toward the window. "I don't control it. You're the co-host. On the hall paperwork. That's the only place your name seems to mean anything." He took a drink of coffee, though it was still hot enough to make him pull the cup away quickly. I said, "Has Megan discussed this form with anyone else?" "Not exactly." "What does that mean?" "She talked to a few relatives about my health, about the planning situation." "What did she say?" "I wasn't on every call." "Tell me what you heard." He leaned back. "She said you were making changes difficult. She said you might be overwhelmed since you've been handling too much alone." "Did she tell them I missed bills?" "I don't know." "Did she tell them I was confused?" "She may have used that word." "And what did you say?" "Nothing." He said it quietly. That was Zachary's usual defense. If Megan made the statement and he stayed silent, he treated himself like a piece of furniture in the room. I folded the form and returned it to the envelope. I need you to correct it. How? Email Dana. Tell her you have no first-hand example of me missing a bill or forgetting an approved expense. That's going to cause a huge fight. You signed your name. I told you I didn't read it. That makes it your responsibility, not mine. He stared at me. You always make everything sound simple. This part is simple. No, it isn't. I have to go home to Megan. I understand that. Do you? Yes. I also have to go home with my name on a form that says I can't manage my life. He looked at the tabletop. The server returned and asked if we wanted food. Zachary said no. I ordered a slice of toast because I didn't want her to think we were occupying the booth for nothing. When she left, Zachary said, I'll talk to Megan. I'm asking what you will do. I'll ask her to update the form. The consultation is over. There's nothing to update. Then, what do you want? A written correction from you. He shook his head slowly. I'm not sending something behind my wife's back. You sent the original behind mine. That ended the conversation. He paid for his coffee and left before my toast arrived. I sat there long enough for the butter to melt completely. I ate half, paid the check, and drove home. There was a message waiting from a photography business. It thanked me for choosing its reunion package and reminded me that a reservation payment was due by Friday. The package matched the charge Megan had added to the spreadsheet. I called the number. A woman answered and asked for the event date. When I gave it, she found the reservation. Are you calling to make the payment? She asked. No. I'm calling to find out who booked it. The contact is Megan Price. Whose name is on the invoice? She read mine. Why? She listed you as the person responsible for payment. Did she provide payment information? Not yet. We sent the payment link to the billing email. Which email? She read mine. That explained why Megan had restored my access to the spreadsheet. She hadn't needed me to edit the budget. She needed vendors to reach me for payment. Cancel the reservation, I said. There's no fee today, but if you cancel after Friday, the reservation payment becomes non-refundable. Cancel it today. Should I contact Megan first? No. The invoice is addressed to me. I don't approve the service. The woman confirmed the cancellation and emailed me a receipt showing nothing was owed. That was the useful result. One call removed a charge before it became my problem. It also sent an automatic cancellation notice to Megan. She called less than 5 minutes later. You canceled the photographer? Yes. You had no right to do that. The invoice was in my name. I spent days arranging that. You didn't ask me? We need photographs. Then hire a photographer you intend to pay. You are punishing the entire family because you're angry with me. I canceled one unapproved service. You're dismantling the reunion piece by piece. The hall is still booked. The caterer is still coming. The room is still full. Not if you keep doing this. Send me a complete list of anything else booked in my name. I'm not playing this game. That isn't a game. She lowered her voice. Zach told me you cornered him at the diner. I asked him to correct a form. He didn't know what I wrote. I noticed. You're trying to turn him against me. I asked him to be responsible for his own name. You've been doing that all week. Your name, your account, your money. Do you hear yourself? Yes. There was silence. Then she said, Virginia never treated family this way. I gripped the phone tighter. Don't use my wife to approve a bill. She understood that reunions matter. She also showed me every receipt. That's because you trusted her. Yes? Megan didn't have an answer for that. She hung up. I checked the spreadsheet again. The photography line had been marked canceled. Under notes, Megan wrote, removed by Edward without planner approval. I added my own note. Invoice assigned to Edward without Edward's consent. She removed my editing access completely. A few minutes later, Zachary sent me a text. You didn't need to embarrass her with the photographer, I replied. She used my name without asking. He wrote, you could have called us first. I called both of you repeatedly about the budget. He didn't respond. That night, I went through every vendor listed in the spreadsheet. The caterer was connected to the hall package. The linens had been stopped. The favors were only an estimate. No other outside reservations had been made in my name. I saved the photography cancellation beside the hall records. Then I called my bank. I didn't report fraud because no money had been taken. I asked them to remove any old third-party contact permissions from my profile and to require direct confirmation from me before adding anyone. The employee reviewed the account and said no other person currently had access. That was good news. Then she said, there was a recent request to add an authorized contact, but it wasn't completed. When? She gave me the date. It was the morning after the consultant visited. Who made the request? It came through the online customer service form. The person did not have enough information to complete verification. What name did they give? Zachary Price. I closed my eyes. Was any money moved? No. No account changes were made. Put a note on the account. No authorized contact is to be added unless I appear in person. I can do that. After the call, I drove to Zachary's house. Megan opened the door but didn't invite me in. Is Zachary here? He's busy. I need to ask him one question. You can ask me. I'm asking him. Zachary appeared in the hallway behind her. What happened? He said. I looked directly at him. Did you try to add yourself to my bank account? His face went still. Megan turned toward him. For the first time, she looked surprised too. Zachary stepped around Megan and came onto the porch. I submitted a request, he said. I didn't get access. Why did you submit it? In case something happened. What happened? Nothing yet. Then why now? He glanced at Megan. She said, Don't look at me. I didn't know he had done it. That was the first disagreement between them I had seen in weeks. Zachary rubbed his forehead. After the meeting with Dana, I thought we should have a backup. A backup for what? Bills, the reunion, your house. My house doesn't need you on my bank account. I know that now. You knew it before. Dad, you're not hearing me. I'm hearing you clearly. You tried to add yourself to my account without asking. I would have told you if it went through. Afterward, he didn't answer. Megan stood inside the doorway with her arms folded. I asked him, Were you planning to move money? No. Then what bills were you going to pay? The hall, if it came to that. The balance is $7,200. I know. You thought you might take that from my account? I said if it came to that. What does that mean? If you refuse to pay at the last minute? I looked at him. That was your emergency? You froze the account. You canceled the photographer. You're acting like you might pull the whole event. I paid a non-refundable deposit. That doesn't mean you won't cancel, Megan said. People are already making travel plans. I turned toward her. Did you ask Zachary to get bank access? No. Did you discuss using my money for the hall? We discussed making sure your commitment was honored. My commitment is written in the agreement. Your behavior changed after you signed it. My behavior changed after you hid the budget. I didn't hide it. You removed my access twice. Because you were making changes without consulting me. I almost laughed. You booked services in my name without consulting me. That's different. How? I'm the planner. And I'm the person you expect to pay. Zachary raised one hand. Can we not do this on the porch? I looked past him into the house. Do what? Have a scene. There's no one here but us. The neighbors can hear. His concern was the neighbors. I kept my voice level. Did you try to add yourself because you believe I'm incompetent? No. Did you sign anything saying I am? No. Megan looked away. I saw it. What did you sign? I asked her. She turned back. Nothing. What did you fill out? We've already discussed Dana's form. Anything else? She didn't answer. Zachary looked at her. Megan? She stepped away from the door. It's information, she said. That's all. What information? She walked toward the kitchen. Zachary followed her, and I followed him inside. A folder was sitting on the counter beneath a pile of reunion programs. Megan placed her hand on it. I downloaded a court packet, she said. Zachary's face went pale. You said you were just researching. I am, I asked. What packet? She pulled out several pages. The top page concerned a petition to have an adult's ability to manage personal and financial decisions reviewed. I didn't need the legal wording explained. It was a competency petition. My name had been typed into the blank for the person being discussed. Nothing had been filed. There was no court stamp. No doctor had examined me. Megan had simply downloaded the papers and started filling them out. That didn't make them harmless. I looked at Zachary. Did you know my name was on this? I knew she downloaded something. Did you know she filled it in? No, Megan said. I entered basic information. You entered my name in a court petition to see what would be required. What did you plan to claim? That you're making unpredictable financial decisions. Not paying for a photographer is unpredictable. It's part of a pattern. List the pattern. She counted on her fingers. You accused us of hiding mail. You froze a family event. You canceled a vendor. You confronted Zach at his job and at a diner. You drove over here at night over a bank inquiry. It's 7:30. That isn't the point. No, the point is that every example begins with something you did. She pulled the papers back. This is why we can't talk to you. Because I ask what you're doing, because you twist everything. Zachary reached for the folder. Put it away, Megan. She held it against her body. You wanted options too. I wanted information about helping Dad if he needed it. I didn't agree to file anything. I haven't filed it. You put his name on it. She stared at him. You tried to get into his bank account. I made an inquiry, and I filled out a form. They stood across from each other in the kitchen, each using the other person's decision as cover. I looked at the reunion program stacked on the counter. Virginia's cropped photograph was on top. Her yellow blouse ended at the edge where my shoulder should have been. How many people have you told? I asked. Megan kept looking at Zachary. Told what? He asked. That I can't manage my money, Megan answered. I've expressed concerns. To whom? Family. How much family? Enough that this isn't only coming from me. Show me. She hesitated, then unlocked her phone. There was a reunion group conversation. I was not part of it. Megan had written that I was struggling with the financial pressure of organizing alone. She said Zachary and she were stepping in to protect the event and reduce my stress. Later, she wrote that I had become defensive and might need broader support after the reunion. Several people had responded with short messages. Whatever you think is best. Keep us updated. I'm sorry Zach has to deal with this. Nobody asked me what had happened. I handed the phone back. Zachary said, I didn't see all of those. You're in the conversation. I muted it. Of course you did. He looked hurt, but he didn't deny it. My own phone buzzed. It was a card alert from my bank. A charge from the printing business had just gone through for a little under $900. I held the screen toward Megan. What is this? She looked at it. The programs and favors. I didn't approve the favors. They were already in production. How did they get my card? The printer had it on file from last year. You told them to use it? You've always paid the printing. You charged my card while we were standing here discussing bank access. I didn't charge it this minute. They processed the order. When did you authorize it? Last week, after I marked it not approved. The order had already been placed. Then why did the spreadsheet call it an estimate? Because I didn't have the final number. I called the printer from their kitchen. The same woman who had handled the photography cancellation wasn't involved. A man in billing found the order and confirmed that the programs and favors were finished. Who authorized the saved card? I asked. The planner on the account. Remove the card after this charge. I can remove it now. Do it. He confirmed that the card information had been deleted. The order couldn't be canceled because the items had already been printed. I could dispute the charge. He said they would then hold the completed order while the dispute was reviewed. I looked at the boxes on the counter. The programs existed. The favors existed. The printer had completed the work in good faith because Megan used an account I had allowed her to use in previous years. I didn't dispute it. That was the financial cost. I had spent years leaving my card on file and telling vendors that Megan could handle details. I had made it easy for her to believe permission continued forever. I told the billing employee to email me the final receipt and remove Megan's authority from the account. When I ended the call, Megan said, "So you admit the order was legitimate?" "I admit the printer did the work. That's the same thing." "No, it isn't." I picked up one of the favors. It was a small cardboard box printed with the family name and the reunion date. Inside were 2 wrapped mints. I put it back. Zachary sat at the kitchen table. "What happens now?" he asked. "That depends on you." "Why me?" "Because your name is on the agreement. Your name is on Dana's form. Your name was used for the bank request. You keep standing close enough to every decision to support it, then saying it wasn't yours." He stared at the floor. Megan said, "You're threatening him. I'm asking him to choose. Between his wife and his father. Between speaking and hiding." She picked up the competency papers. "You think this proves we're wrong, but the way you're reacting proves why we're concerned." I held out my hand. "Give me a copy." "No, my name is on it. It's my research." "Then take my name off. I'll decide what I do with my own notes," Zachary said. "Megan, remove his name." She looked at him. It was the first time he had directly opposed her in front of me. Only for a moment, but I heard it. She took a pen from the counter and drew one line through my name. The letters were still readable beneath the ink. "That doesn't erase the file," I said. "I haven't saved it." "You printed it." She shoved the papers back into the folder. I'm done with this conversation. So am I. I turned to Zachary. I am not canceling the haul. His shoulders lowered slightly. I continued. I am not approving anything else without seeing it. I will not pay another vendor invoice that Megan places in my name. I still want the seating chart before the final count. You'll get it, he said. Megan laughed from the counter. I looked at him. Will I? Yes. Then make sure I do. I left their house. At home, I called every vendor account I had used for earlier reunions. I removed saved payment information and ended standing permissions. It took most of the evening. Then I opened the family group conversation on my own phone. Megan had added me after I confronted her. I could see the earlier messages now. I didn't defend myself. Not yet. If I wrote a long explanation, relatives would choose whichever version made them most comfortable. I wanted records, not arguments. I saved copies of the messages and put my phone away. My original goal had been simple. I wanted the full budget and a place in planning the reunion I was funding. That was no longer enough. A seating chart wouldn't fix a bank request. A receipt wouldn't undo a competency form. Even if Megan restored every spreadsheet permission, Zachary could still remain silent and let her decisions become mine. I needed to know whether my son would make one clear choice when silence was no longer available. Until then, I would protect the haul date, protect my consent, and stop rescuing decisions neither of them would own. The next morning, I removed my name from every task that didn't require the contracting client. I left final payment under my name because the agreement still required it. I left cost approval under my name for the same reason. Setup stayed with Zachary. Check-in stayed with Megan. Catering arrival went to Zachary. Programs and favors went to Megan because she had ordered them. I sent the list to both of them and copied Harold. Megan replied first. This is petty. I didn't answer. Zachary wrote, What are you doing at the reunion? I replied, Attending. He called me. That's it? That's what most relatives are doing. But you know the haul. So does Harold. You've always helped with setup. You're handling setup. You wrote my name beside it. Your name was already there. I thought we were doing it together. You attended the layout meeting without me. You approved the arrangement. You can finish it. He lowered his voice. This is about the bank thing. It's about you owning your decisions. I told you I didn't get access. You tried. I made a mistake. Then correct it. How? Handle the responsibilities you accepted. He was quiet. I didn't fill the silence for him. Finally, he said, Fine, I'll handle setup. Tell Harold directly. You copied him. I'm not asking Harold to interpret our conversation. Zachary sighed. I'll email him. An hour later, Harold forwarded me Zachary's message. I'll be the contact for setup, catering arrival, and room layout. That was the first practical result of my new approach. Zachary had stated his own role in his own words. 2 days later, Harold emailed all three of us about a layout problem. The coffee station blocked part of the aisle beside the extra dinner tables. The fire exit itself was clear, but guests carrying cups would pass through the same narrow space used by the caterer. He offered 3 options: move the coffee station, reduce the guest count, remove one dinner table, and tighten the seating. Megan answered within minutes. Edward can look at it during the final walkthrough. I replied, Setup contact is Zachary. Then I stopped. That afternoon, Zachary called. What do you think we should do about the coffee station? You have Harold's options. I'm asking what you think. Which option do you prefer? I don't know. Moving the coffee might make the room look strange. Then choose one of the other 2. We can't cut guests. That leaves one. Tight seating. Yes, Megan won't like that. You asked what the options were. You didn't ask what Megan would like. He made a frustrated sound. You've arranged rooms like this. I've carried tables. Your mother arranged rooms. I wish she were here. So do I. The line went quiet. I sat down at my kitchen table. Zachary said, She would know what to do. She would ask how many people were sitting at each table. Do you know? No, I haven't been given the chart. He understood the point. Okay, he said. I'll get the numbers. From Megan. Yes, then make a choice. He called again that evening. We're moving the coffee station. Where? Along the west wall, past the last dinner table. Did Harold approve it? He said it works if we use the shorter service table. Good. The shorter table is included. No extra charge. That sounds settled. He waited, perhaps expecting more. I didn't congratulate him for making a normal decision. I also didn't correct it. He said, Harold wants us there Friday to mark the floor. I saw the email. Are you coming? Yes. Why? I'm still the client. That's not what I meant. I'm attending to confirm the final estimate. You're attending to handle setup. He laughed once without humor. You really made a whole system out of this. The agreement already made the system. We ignored it. Friday afternoon, I arrived at the hall 5 minutes early. Harold had placed strips of blue painter's tape on the floor to mark the corners of the dinner tables. The coffee station was taped along the west wall. There was enough space between it and the nearest table for 2 people to pass. Zachary arrived alone. Where's Megan? I asked. She's coming. Harold handed him the room layout. Let's start with the catering entrance. Zachary looked at me. I put my hands in my coat pockets. You're the setup contact. He followed Harold toward the kitchen. I walked behind them and listened. Harold showed him where the caterer could leave empty transport racks. Zachary noticed the racks would block the storage room door. Can they go outside after unloading? He asked. They can, but they'll need covers if it rains. What about the wall beside the loading door? That works if they keep the electrical panel clear. Zachary measured the space with a tape measure he had brought from home. The racks fit. He wrote the location on the layout. We moved into the main room. Harold explained that the check-in table couldn't extend farther into the entrance. Megan's draft used 2 tables there. Zachary said, Can we turn one sideways? Harold helped him shift a folding table into place. The arrangement left room for name tags and programs without narrowing the entrance. That works, Harold said. Zachary marked it on the page. Megan arrived while they were moving the table back against the wall. She carried her laptop and the same planning binder from my kitchen. What did you change? She asked. Zachary showed her the layout. We moved coffee to the west wall. Caterer racks go beside the loading door. Check-in uses an L shape. You moved coffee without me? You were late. I told you I had a call. Harold needed an answer. She looked at me. Did you tell him to do this? I didn't tell him anything, Harold said. Zachary resolved the aisle issue. Megan set her laptop on a table. The west wall is where I planned the photography area. The photographer was canceled, I said. We can still use it for family pictures. Zachary pointed to the opposite corner. Use that wall. The light is worse there. Then take pictures before dinner. She stared at him. He held her gaze for a moment, then looked down at the layout. It wasn't much, but he didn't withdraw the choice. Harold asked for the final guest count. Megan opened her laptop. We're at the same number. Any pending additions? 2 possible. Harold shook his head. You don't have room for 2 more with this layout. We could add chairs to existing tables, not without seeing the seating distribution. I looked at the laptop. Megan turned the screen slightly away from me. Harold continued, I need the locked number by next week. After that, the balance won't decrease if guests cancel. Megan said, We understand. I asked, What is the current balance? Harold read the amount from his tablet. It was still $7,200. The frozen estimate had held. That was my second practical result. No new charges had reached the hall account, since I required written approval. Harold said, I'll send the final estimate to all authorized contacts tonight. Send the current layout too, I said. Of course. Megan closed her laptop. You could have asked me for it. I asked several times. I meant the layout. Harold has it. She picked up the binder. You're enjoying this. Enjoying what? Making everything go through somebody else. I'm following the responsibilities on the agreement. No, you're making a point, Zachary said. The room works now. She turned toward him. That isn't the issue. What is the issue? The issue is that your father is forcing you to choose things, then standing back so he can criticize. I said, I haven't criticized one choice you made today. She looked at Harold, who had become very interested in his tablet. I continued. Zachary solved 3 setup problems. No cost was added. I have no complaint. Zachary's expression changed. He hadn't expected me to say that in front of her. Harold said, The layout is workable. I'll consider it approved unless someone requests a change before the deadline. Zachary said, Approve it. Megan snapped. We haven't reviewed the photography space. There is no photography service, he said. We still need pictures. Then we'll take them in the other corner. She stared at him again. This time, he didn't look away. Harold marked the layout approved. The decision became visible and official. It belonged to Zachary. That was the partial reward I hadn't expected. When I stopped stepping in, my son didn't collapse. He measured the space, asked useful questions, and made choices that worked. Megan saw it too. She didn't like it. In the parking lot, she stopped beside my truck. "You're putting him in the middle. He put his name on the agreement. You asked him to." I asked whether he would help. He said yes. He thought that meant helping you, not replacing you. I haven't asked him to replace me. You've removed yourself from everything. I removed myself from tasks he already accepted. You know he hates conflict. So everyone else has to make his decisions? He's trying to keep this family together. By signing forms he doesn't read? Her face hardened. You're not going to let that go. No. Then don't act surprised when people begin asking whether you're being reasonable. She walked toward Zachary's car. He remained near the hall entrance, speaking with Harold. Megan waited beside the passenger door until he finished. Before he left, Zachary came over to me. "Thanks for not changing the layout. It worked. I wasn't sure. You checked it." He nodded. Then he said, "I'll get you the seating chart. When? Before the final guest count." "You've said that. I mean it. All right." He looked like he wanted to say something else. Instead, he turned and joined Megan. That evening, Harold sent the approved layout and current estimate. Zachary's name appeared beside the setup approval. I printed both. Then I opened the signed venue agreement again. I wasn't looking for a way out. I wanted to make sure no other event decision could be shifted into my name without my consent. I read each paragraph from the beginning. When I reached the section Harold had pointed out when I signed, I slowed down. Before service began, the contracting client could assign the entire booking to the named co-host. If the co-host accepted, responsibility for the unpaid balance moved with the booking, and the original client was released. I remembered reading it the first time. Back then, it sounded like a practical rule for illness or travel. Now, Zachary's name sat beside every important choice except payment. I put a paper tab beside the paragraph and closed the agreement. I still hoped I would never need it. The next morning, an invitation appeared in the family group conversation. Megan had scheduled a meeting at my house for Sunday afternoon. The message said, "We need everyone aligned about Edward's recent decisions and the future of family planning." She had called a meeting in my home without asking me. I replied in the group conversation, "You may come at 2. No one will enter my office, review my accounts, or ask me to sign anything." Megan answered, "That sounds reasonable." It didn't sound like her, which told me she already had a plan. Sunday afternoon, Zachary arrived first. He carried a folding chair from his trunk. "How many people are coming?" I asked. 6 or 7. "You don't know?" Megan invited them. Of course she did. He set the chair in my living room. I had moved my desk key from my usual key ring to my pocket. The office door was locked. The hall agreement remained inside. Zachary noticed the closed door. "You really think someone is going through your desk?" "I think people have used my mail, my card, and my name without permission. Nobody is going to touch your desk. Then the lock won't inconvenience them." Megan arrived with the planning binder and a stack of printed pages. Virginia's sister came behind her. 2 adult cousins arrived a few minutes later, followed by an older relative from Megan's side and his wife. Nobody greeted me the way they usually did. There were careful smiles and quiet voices. One cousin touched my arm and asked, "How are you doing, really?" "I'm doing fine." She gave me a look that suggested my answer had confirmed something. Megan arranged everyone in the living room. She took the chair nearest the coffee table and placed her papers in front of her. I remained in my own chair beside the window. Zachary sat on the couch between us. Megan began without asking whether I wanted to speak first. "We're here because the reunion planning has become difficult, and we're worried about Edward." Virginia's sister looked at me. "Are you sick?" "No." Megan said, "No one is saying he has a diagnosis." "Then what are you saying?" I asked. "I'm saying there have been concerning changes." She handed copies of a 1-page summary around the room. I held out my hand. She gave me the last copy. At the top, she had written, "Recent incidents." The list included the hall freeze, the photography cancellation, my visit to the Grange Hall, and my call to the bank. The bank request was described as my attempt to block emergency family support. The printing charge appeared as a vendor payment I had challenged, after previously agreeing to cover reunion expenses. Nothing on the page mentioned that Zachary had tried to add himself to my account. Nothing said Megan had used my saved card after I marked the order unapproved. Nothing explained that my mail had been redirected. I looked around the room. Has everyone read the actual documents? No one answered. I held up the summary. This is Megan's version of events. Megan said, it's a timeline. A timeline includes what happened before each event. One cousin asked, did you freeze the hall? I stopped additional charges without written approval. Why? Because the cost kept increasing, Megan said. He had already committed to paying. I looked at her. I committed to the hall agreement. I did not give you unlimited authority. Virginia's sister asked, is the reunion in danger? No, Megan interrupted. It could be. How? I asked. You've canceled services. One photographer. You've threatened not to pay. I said I wouldn't pay unapproved charges. She turned to the others. This is what every conversation becomes. I said, show them the account statement. Her eyes narrowed. Edward, this isn't a trial. You invited people to review my judgment. Show them what I supposedly forgot. Zachary leaned forward. Dad, nobody wants to fight. Then correct the paper. He looked at the summary. I asked him, did you request access to my bank account? Every face turned toward him. Megan answered, it was an emergency contact request. I asked Zachary. He rubbed his hands together. Yes, I submitted something online. Did I authorize it? No. Did the bank approve it? No. Did I block an existing emergency contact? No. I pointed to Megan's summary. Then that line is false. The older relative on Megan's side shifted in his chair. He said, maybe it was poorly worded. It was worded to make my reaction look like the first action. Megan reached for the page in my hand. I kept it. Virginia's sister asked, what about the missed bills? There are no missed bills, Megan said. The concern is confusion around financial decisions. Which decision did I forget? She looked toward Zachary. He stared at the carpet. I said, there isn't one. For a moment, the room became quiet. That was the useful part of the meeting. Megan had gathered people to support a conclusion, but the conclusion couldn't survive a direct question. One cousin asked, why was a consultant brought in? Megan's expression tightened. I said, because Megan told her I had missed payments and agreed to discuss senior living. I said you needed support, Megan replied. Did he agree to meet her? Virginia's sister asked. Zachary said, he agreed to meet with us. That's not the same thing. No, he said. It isn't. Megan turned toward him. He kept looking down, but he didn't take it back. The room shifted slightly. Not enough to repair anything, but enough that Megan stopped controlling every answer. She gathered the remaining copies of her summary. This is bigger than one consultant. What's bigger? I asked. The pattern since Virginia died. I sat forward. What pattern? You've made money your only connection to the family. The sentence landed because part of it was true. She continued. You pay, then you expect control. If anyone makes a decision without you, you treat it as betrayal. I didn't answer immediately. I thought about the motor in Zachary's heat pump, the tables I had hauled, the vendors I had allowed to keep my card. I had used work and money to hold my place after Virginia died. That didn't excuse what Megan had done. It did explain why stopping felt like losing more than a reunion. I said, I expected a seat at decisions attached to my name. Megan shook her head. You hear yourself? Everything is a transaction. Virginia's sister said, Megan, he asked to see what he was paying for. And I showed him. You locked him out of the spreadsheet, Zachary said. Everyone looked at him again. Megan's face changed. You know why I did that. He asked for the budget. You told me he was becoming obsessive. I said he kept asking. That's the same thing. No, I said, it isn't. Zachary stood. I don't think Dad needs someone managing his accounts. Megan stared at him. 2 weeks earlier, that sentence would have been enough for me. I would have treated it as proof that he chose me. Now I heard what he had left out. He hadn't said the bank request was wrong. He hadn't said the consultant form was wrong. He hadn't said he would correct the family conversation. He had made the smallest statement available. Megan placed the competency papers on the coffee table. I brought these so everyone could understand what options exist. Virginia's sister picked up the top page. Are you trying to have Edward declared incompetent? No. I'm showing what would be involved if things got worse. Did a doctor recommend this? No. Did Dana? No. Then put it away. Megan took the papers back. The relatives exchanged uncomfortable looks. No one supported the petition. That was another small result. But no one apologized for coming, either. The older relative from Megan's side said, maybe Zach should take over the reunion payment this year, just to lower the temperature. Megan answered before Zachary could. That isn't possible. Why not? The balance is too high. I looked at Zachary. He didn't say he could pay it. He didn't say I should. He simply sat down again. The real purpose of the meeting became clear. Megan wanted the family to believe I needed oversight, but she still expected my money to remain available. They wanted authority without the expense that came with it. I stood. This meeting is over, Megan said. You can't end every conversation when you hear something you dislike. It's my house. That's exactly the attitude we're worried about. I looked at the others. Thank you for coming. If anyone has a question about me, call me. Don't ask Megan. Virginia's sister hugged me before she left. Her arms felt stiff. One cousin said, I hope you know we care. I said, then call when there isn't a meeting. She looked embarrassed and followed the others outside. Megan remained seated. Zachary collected the folding chair but didn't carry it out. I pointed to the competency papers. Those leave with you. Megan put them in her binder. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You called the meeting. I was trying to create support for a petition nobody asked for this family. I said nothing. She picked up her bag and walked out. Zachary stayed. I didn't know she was bringing the papers, he said. You knew about the meeting. Yes. You knew what she told them. Some of it. You're always standing beside something you only know some of. He rested both hands on the folding chair. I said you don't need help with your accounts. Thank you. The words sounded cold, but I meant them. He looked toward the door. Megan's not going to send the seating chart now. Why? She thinks you'll use it to start another argument. Do you have it? No. Can you get it? I can try. You promised. I know. Then don't try. Do it. His jaw tightened. You have no idea what this is doing to my marriage. I know exactly what silence does to a relationship. He looked at me. For a second, I thought he might say something real. Instead, he carried the chair outside. The final guest deadline passed 3 days later. The hall sent me the locked count and final balance. The layout could no longer be reduced. The $7,200 would be due before service began. No seating chart came. I called Zachary once. He didn't answer. I sent one message. You gave me your word. He replied the next morning. I'm working on it. Megan removed me from the family group conversation again. The practical advantage I had gained at the walkthrough was gone. Zachary had made one visible choice, then retreated as soon as the pressure moved into his home. I could have canceled the reunion before service and accepted the loss of the deposit. That would have protected the remaining money. It also would have punished relatives who knew almost nothing about what had happened. Or I could pay the balance, accept whatever place Megan gave me, and teach both of them that every boundary disappeared when a deadline arrived. There was a third choice in the agreement. It would preserve the reunion, but it would cost me the deposit. It would also put Zachary in the position he had avoided all year. He would have to accept the booking and its balance, or let the event stop before it began. I hadn't confirmed yet whether Harold would apply the provision exactly that way. I also didn't know whether I could look at my son in that moment and follow through, but I chose not to cancel. I chose to continue toward the reunion and accept that the $1,800 was already gone. Then I took the signed agreement from my desk, left the paper tab beside the assignment paragraph, and placed the envelope in my coat pocket. The next morning, I called Harold and asked for 20 minutes in his office. He offered to explain anything by phone. I'd rather have the agreement in front of both of us. All right, he said. Come by at 3. I arrived with my signed copy still inside the white envelope. Harold took the venue copy from his file and placed it beside mine. The two agreements matched. I opened mine to the paper tab. Explain this paragraph as if I've never rented a hall before. He read it once before answering. You're the contracting client. Zachary is the named co-host. Before event service begins, you can ask to assign the entire booking to him. What happens if he accepts? He becomes the contracting client for the event. The unpaid balance becomes his responsibility. You're released from it. In writing? Yes. He would sign an assignment acceptance. I would sign the venue confirmation. You would receive a release. What happens to my deposit? It stays with the booking. So, I don't get it back? No. It's non-refundable, and it has already been applied to the event. If Zachary accepts, he gets the benefit of that deposit. That's correct. And he owes the remaining $7,200. Yes. I pointed to the phrase before service begins. When does that window close? When we begin event service. For your reunion, that means before we open the main doors and release the caterer to start serving. What if the caterer has unloaded? That doesn't matter. The doors remain closed until the account is settled. What if guests are waiting outside? The rule is the same. Harold folded his hands on his desk. Are you planning to assign the event? I haven't decided. He nodded. I asked, what if Zachary refuses? Then you remain the client unless you cancel. And if I don't pay? We don't open the event. Would I owe the balance after cancellation? Not if the event is canceled before service under this provision. You would lose the deposit. Some outside vendors may have separate terms, but that's not part of our agreement. The programs had already been paid. The caterer and room service were inside the hall package. There was no second bill waiting elsewhere. I said, can I cancel without offering the assignment? Yes. That was the easier financial choice. I could stop the event, lose $1,800, and keep $7,200 in my account. Zachary and Megan would have to explain everything to relatives standing outside. It would also punish people who had driven to Middletown, believing the reunion was settled. Most of them had no idea what Megan had done. Even the ones at the family meeting had received a carefully arranged version. I said, I don't want the hall canceled if Zachary is willing to take responsibility. That's your decision. Can he accept the assignment without being here? Not at the last minute. I need to verify his identity and get his signature before service. He'll be here. As co-host, he should be. I looked at the two agreements. Will you tell him I asked about this? Harold leaned back. I don't discuss one client's questions with another authorized contact unless the booking requires it. Right now, nothing has changed. That's all I need. He slid a blank assignment page toward me. This is the form he would sign. I read it. It was one page. The language was plain. Zachary would accept the booking, the venue rules, and the unpaid balance. Once Harold confirmed the assignment, I would have no remaining payment obligation. There was no trick in it. The rule existed because halls needed to know who was responsible before an event began. It didn't punish Zachary. It required him to accept the cost of the event he had helped direct. Harold said, if you intend to use this, do it before I open the doors. Once service begins, the balance stays with the current client. Understood. Do you want a copy of the blank form? No, keep it here. He looked at me for a moment. I've managed this hall a long time, Edward. Families fight over bills more often than you'd think. I'm not asking you to settle a family fight. I know. I'm asking you to apply the agreement. That's what I'll do. His answer removed the last uncertainty. The provision worked exactly as I had read it. Harold would confirm and execute the rule, but he would not choose for either of us. I carried my agreement home. There were 4 days left before the reunion. Megan sent a group email that evening with arrival instructions. Since she had removed me from the family conversation, I received it through the event mailing list. Guests were asked to arrive shortly before the doors opened. Volunteers were supposed to arrive earlier. My name wasn't listed among the volunteers. I still didn't know where I was sitting. The email didn't include table assignments. I forwarded it to Zachary with one sentence. Where is the seating chart you promised? He called, instead of writing back. I know. That isn't a chart. Megan is making final adjustments. The count is locked. People still cancel. Harold said the balance won't change. This isn't about the balance. What is it about? He didn't answer. I said, you promised before the deadline. I'm trying to keep things calm. By withholding information? You and Megan can't discuss anything without it becoming a confrontation. She doesn't need to discuss it. She needs to send the chart. I'll make sure everything is handled. That phrase doesn't mean anything anymore. His voice became tired. What do you want from me, Dad? One direct choice. About what? Whether your word to me matters when Megan dislikes it. That's not fair. It's the question. He breathed into the phone for several seconds. Then he said, I have to finish packing supplies. He ended the call. I didn't call back. The next day, Megan emailed me the hall arrival time. Harold needs payment before doors open. You can pay through the link and arrive with regular guests. I replied, I'll settle the account at the hall. She wrote, there's no reason for you to be there early. I didn't answer. Her message gave me another reason to arrive early. That afternoon, Zachary stopped by my house. He had 2 boxes of leftover favors in his back seat and the planning binder on the passenger floor. He stayed on the porch. Megan wants to know if you paid yet. I'll pay before service. She's worried the transaction might be declined. It won't be. Could you do it now? No. Why wait? Because the agreement says before service. That means any time before service. Yes. So why not now? I looked at him. Are you asking as co-host? I'm asking as your son. My son promised me a seating chart. His eyes moved toward the porch railing. I'm working on it. The reunion is in 3 days. I know. Do you know where I'm sitting? He looked back at me. I haven't checked the final version. That might have been true, it might not. I still didn't know. I said, then check it. Megan says you're using the chart as some kind of loyalty test. I'm asking where I'll eat dinner. You'll be at the reunion. That isn't the same answer. He shifted his weight. She thinks you're going to criticize where everyone sits. I haven't criticized one table assignment because I haven't seen one. He rubbed the loose porch railing with his hand. You should fix this. I will. I can come by after the reunion. If you want. He looked surprised by that answer. Usually I would have handed him a wrench and turned the visit into a job. This time I left the railing alone. Zachary said, I don't want Sunday to turn ugly. Neither do I. Then pay before we get there. No. His mouth tightened. Why are you being so stubborn? Because once I pay, every unanswered question stops mattering to you. That's not true. Send the chart. He walked back to his car. Before getting in, he said, Mom would hate this. I kept one hand on the doorframe. Your mother would have mailed the seating cards 2 weeks ago. He shut the car door harder than necessary and drove away. That night, I considered sending the family copies of Megan's consultant form, the bank inquiry, the change mailing address, and the competency papers. I could have prepared a clean packet, dates on one side, documents on the other. People would understand that I hadn't imagined the pattern. I didn't do it. The relatives weren't a jury, and Virginia's death wasn't evidence for either side to use. Broadcasting everything would make the reunion into a public trial before anyone reached the hall. I also considered assigning the booking to Zachary immediately. Harold could call him into the office before the event and give him time to decide in private, but I still didn't know whether I had been excluded. I had suspicion, evasive messages, and a broken promise. I did not have the seating chart. Using the provision before I knew would turn it into punishment for everything that came before. I wanted the boundary to match the action. If I arrived and had a seat, I would pay the balance. The reunion would proceed. Afterward, I would end the automatic payments and deal with Zachary separately. If I arrived and they had removed me while leaving the bill in my name, I would not rescue that choice. That evening, I poured 1 glass of bourbon. I sat at the kitchen table with Virginia's old grocery pad hanging beside the door. I didn't ask what she would have done. She had spent too much of her life making other people speak plainly. I couldn't use her memory to avoid making my own decision. I drank the bourbon slowly, washed the glass, and put it away. The next morning, I placed my bank card in my wallet. I was still prepared to pay. I also put the signed agreement back inside my coat. On reunion day, I dressed in gray slacks and the blue shirt Virginia used to like. I left the house early enough to reach the Grange Hall before the caterer finished unloading. Cars were already turning into the parking lot. A few relatives stood near the closed doors, talking in small groups. I parked beside Zachary's car, buttoned my coat over the agreement, and walked toward the check-in table. Megan was kneeling behind the check-in table, taping an extension cord to the floor. She looked up when my shoes came into view. You're early. I said I would settle the account before service. You could have used the payment link. I know. Zachary came through the main doors carrying a box of name tags. He stopped when he saw me. Dad. Morning. Harold stood near the office with a tablet in his hand. The caterer's staff moved between the kitchen and the dining room behind him. I looked down at the printed seating chart. It had been mounted on white foam board. Megan had divided the room into numbered tables, each with a list of names beneath it. I checked the first table. Zachary and Megan were there. I checked the second, then the third. Virginia's sister was seated with 2 cousins. The relatives from Megan's side had been placed near the buffet. The last table held the people added near the final deadline. I started over. My name wasn't on any table. Megan stood and brushed dust from her knees. The chart is final. Where am I sitting? She picked up the roll of tape. We can discuss that in a minute. We're discussing it now. Zachary set the box on the table. Dad, can we go outside? No. A few relatives had entered the lobby behind me. They stayed near the closed main doors, pretending to study the programs. I pointed to the seating chart. Where is my name? Megan said. The dinner count was locked. I was included when the hall was booked. There were changes. What change removed me? She looked at Zachary. He didn't move. I waited. Harold walked closer but didn't interrupt. Finally, Zachary said, I canceled your seat. The lobby became quiet. I looked at my son. When? A few days ago. Before or after you promised me the chart? He swallowed. After. Why? Megan said the evening would be calmer if you weren't at dinner. Megan stepped beside him. That isn't exactly what I said. What did you say? I asked. I said emotions were too high. You'd already turned the planning into a confrontation. We thought it would be better if you didn't stay for the meal. We? She looked toward the relatives near the door. This was a joint decision. I asked Zachary, was it? He stared at the floor. I agreed to it. That was the answer I had been waiting for all year. It wasn't the answer I wanted, but it was clear. Harold's tablet made a short sound. He looked at the screen. Edward, the account is still showing the balance due. I'm sending the final invoice now. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I took it out. The billing message showed the event date, my name, and the remaining $7,200. Megan looked at the phone. You can pay from there. I looked at her. What happens after I pay? Harold opens the doors. And where do I go? She pressed her lips together. You can stay for the welcome portion. Standing? We can find a chair near the back. That isn't a dinner seat. No. The relatives behind me no longer pretended not to listen. Virginia's sister said, Why would you remove Edward? Megan turned toward her. This is between us. You called the family meeting. That was different. Zachary said, Can we please take this into the office? I put my phone away. No, you made the decision here. You can own it here. He looked toward Harold. Harold said, I need the account settled before I can open the main room, Megan said. Edward knows that. Yes, I said, I do. She held out her hand toward my phone. Then pay it, and we'll deal with the rest later. There is no later version of this bill. You signed the agreement, so did Harold. I reached inside my coat and removed the white envelope. Zachary watched me open it. Megan's expression changed when she saw the signed agreement. What are you doing? I turned to Harold. I want to use the pre-service assignment provision. Harold nodded once. All right. Megan looked between us. What assignment provision? Harold spoke to Zachary. As the named co-host, you can accept assignment of the booking before service begins. If you accept, you become responsible for the event and its unpaid balance. Edward is released. Zachary stared at him. The whole balance? Yes. Megan stepped forward. No, that's not what the agreement means. Harold kept his voice calm. It's a standard provision in our venue agreement. He paid the deposit. The deposit stays with the event. She looked at me. You planned this. I read the agreement. You set us up. I asked for the seating chart. That has nothing to do with the contract. It told me whether I was paying as a host or being used as a billing address. Zachary rubbed the back of his neck. What happens if I don't accept? Harold answered him. Edward remains the client. He can pay the balance or cancel before service begins. If the event is canceled, the deposit remains non-refundable and the doors do not open. Megan shook her head. We have people arriving. I know, Harold said. The caterer is here. I know. You can't cancel now. The agreement allows cancellation before service. She turned to me. You would ruin the reunion over one chair? I said. You had a chair. You removed it. We can put it back. She reached for the seating chart. No, I said. Her hand stopped. There's room at one of the tables, she said. We'll squeeze you in. I'm not buying my seat back. This is ridiculous. You said the chart was final. I can change it. Because the bill changed hands? She looked at the floor. Zachary said, Dad, I made a mistake. I held his gaze. You made a choice. I was trying to keep peace at home, so you removed me and kept my invoice. I didn't think of it that way. You didn't have to. I was supposed to handle the difficult part for you. He looked at the people waiting near the door. More relatives were coming in from the parking lot. They gathered behind the first group, asking why the doors were still closed. Megan lowered her voice. We don't have $7,200 available for this. Zachary looked at her. What about the card? That was for our trip. We can cancel the trip. We already paid part of it. You said it was refundable. This isn't the time. He gave a tired laugh. No, Apparently, this is exactly the time. She grabbed his arm. Do not put that amount on the card. What do you want me to do? Make him pay. Zachary looked at me. I didn't move. Megan said, Edward, your issue is with me. Don't do this to your son, I answered. My son canceled the seat. Zachary closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them, he asked Harold, What do I have to sign? Harold went into his office. Megan followed him 2 steps before stopping. Zach, no. He turned toward her. What else is there? He's bluffing. I said nothing. Megan looked at me. You won't cancel. Virginia cared too much about this reunion. I felt every person in the lobby listening. Leave Virginia out of it. She would be ashamed. Zachary said, Stop. Megan stared at him. He said it again. Stop using mom. Harold returned with the 1-page assignment form and a clipboard. He handed it to Zachary. Read it before you sign. That mattered. Nobody rushed him. Nobody hid the terms. The choice was printed in front of him. Zachary read the page from top to bottom. Megan stood beside him, whispering, You don't have to do this. If I don't, the reunion stops. He won't stop it. Zachary looked at me. Will you? If you refuse the booking, yes. Several relatives reacted behind me. I heard someone say my name. I kept my eyes on Zachary. He asked, You'll really walk away from the deposit? I already accepted that cost. What about us? That depends on what happens after today. His face tightened. That's not an answer. It's the only honest one I have, Megan said. He's punishing us. I looked at Zachary. I'm leaving you the reunion, the deposit, the caterer, the room, and every decision you approved. I'm refusing one thing. I won't pay to be excluded. Harold pointed to the signature line. If you accept, sign there. If you decline, tell me now so I can begin closing procedures. Zachary took the pen. His hand shook slightly. Megan said, Please don't. He signed. Harold checked the signature against the original agreement, then signed the venue confirmation. He turned to me. Edward, the assignment is accepted. You are released from the unpaid balance. He handed me the release. Then he faced Zachary. I need payment before I open the doors. Zachary took out his wallet. Megan said, Use the other card. It doesn't have enough room. You don't know that. I checked last night. She stared at him. That told me they had discussed the possibility of paying, even while expecting me to do it. Zachary inserted a credit card into Harold's portable terminal. The screen asked for confirmation. He pressed the button. For several seconds, nobody spoke. The terminal displayed an approval message. Harold printed the receipt and handed it to Zachary. The full balance is paid. Megan sat down behind the check-in table. She looked as if the chair had been pulled from under her, even though it hadn't moved. Zachary folded the receipt and put it in his wallet. He didn't look at me. Harold tapped the main screen on his tablet. The locks on the double doors released with a solid click. Relatives began moving toward the room, but slowly. Most of them looked from Zachary to me before passing. Virginia's sister stopped beside me. Are you leaving? Yes. Do you want to come sit with us? No, thank you, Megan heard me. There, he has a seat if he wants one. I looked at her. No, she offered me part of hers. You canceled mine. Zachary finally met my eyes. Dad. I waited. He had nothing else to say. I put the release inside the envelope with my agreement. Then I walked past the check-in table, through the gathering relatives, and out into the parking lot. Behind me, Harold opened the doors, and Zachary's reunion began. I reached my truck before my phone started ringing. The first call came from Megan. I let it go to voicemail. The second came from Virginia's sister. I answered that one. Are you all right? She asked. I'm fine. You shouldn't be alone right now. I'm going home. Let me come with you. No, stay and eat. How can I sit in there after that? You drove here for a reunion. Have the reunion. She became quiet. Then she said, I should have asked you what was happening before that meeting. Yes. I'm sorry. I appreciate you saying it. That was all I gave her. An apology could acknowledge a mistake. It couldn't remove the afternoon from my living room. I drove home and hung my coat beside Virginia's yellow raincoat. The agreement and release went into my locked desk. I made a sandwich and ate at the kitchen table. For years, reunion day had ended with sore feet. A full trash bag in my truck, and 3 containers of leftover food. That evening, my truck was empty. My phone kept buzzing on the counter. Some messages asked whether the reunion had been canceled. Others asked why I had left. One cousin wrote that Megan said I had created a payment dispute at the last minute. I answered with one sentence. The hall opened, and the booking was paid by the person who accepted it. I didn't send documents. The people standing in the lobby had seen enough. Around 8, Harold emailed copies of the assignment, my release, and the paid venue receipt. My account showed no unpaid balance. The deposit remained gone. I printed the release and filed it with the agreement. Megan's voicemail arrived a few minutes later. "You need to call us tonight. What you did was cruel and completely unnecessary. Zach put the balance on a card because you threatened to destroy the reunion. You will reimburse us. We can discuss how much of the deposit you want, credited. But you cannot leave us with this charge." I listened once. Then I deleted it. Zachary called just after 9. I answered. "Dad, are you still at the hall? We're cleaning up. That was your responsibility." "I know." He sounded exhausted. After a pause, he said, "The reunion happened. I assumed it would. The food was good. All right. People kept asking where you were. What did you tell them?" "The truth." "Which part?" "That I took your seat off the chart." I waited. He continued. "Megan told people you chose to leave. Did you correct her?" "Yes, that was different," he said. "She's furious with me. I'm not getting between you and your wife. I know." "Do you?" "Yes." Behind him, I heard tables being dragged across the hall floor. He said, "The card payment means we have to cancel our trip. You knew that before you signed." I did. Megan didn't think I'd follow through. Neither did I. There was no accusation in his voice. That made it harder to answer. "I told you I would cancel if you declined. I know. We don't need to discuss the payment tonight. She says you owe us." "I don't. I know what the form says. This isn't about the form anymore." He became quiet. I said, "Finish cleaning the hall, return the key to Harold, make sure the caterer takes the racks." "I already handled the racks." "Good." The old habit rose in me. I almost offered to drive back and help with the tables. I didn't. Zachary said, "I'll call you tomorrow. Call when you're ready to speak plainly." He ended the call. Megan came to my house the next morning. She didn't bring Zachary. I opened the door but stayed in the doorway. "We need to talk about reimbursement," she said. "No, you haven't even heard what I'm proposing. I'm not reimbursing you. You agreed to pay for the reunion. I agreed while I was part of it. You were part of it. You were there. I was in the lobby. We offered to add a chair. After the invoice arrived," her face tightened. "You made Zach choose with the entire family watching. He had already chosen. No, you trapped him. The agreement named him as co-host. He approved the layout, guests, and setup. You named him. He accepted. He was helping you. He canceled my seat." She looked toward the street. "That was a mistake. Did you make it?" We both agreed. "Then why is he the only one paying?" "We're married. I'm paying too. That's between you and Zachary." She pulled a folded sheet from her purse. It showed the card transaction and a handwritten repayment schedule. We had plans for that money. I heard. We canceled the trip. We're also putting off the new dining set. I'm sorry you have to change your plans." "No, you aren't." "I'm sorry Zachary's choice cost you. I'm not sorry I refused the bill." She held the paper out. I didn't take it. "Your deposit was $1,800, she said. "If we credit that, you owe us the rest. The deposit already stayed with the booking. That was your contribution." "Yes." "Then you admit you were responsible. I contributed $1,800 to a reunion I didn't attend. That isn't enough. It's the last reunion money you'll receive from me." She stared at me. "What does that mean?" "It means I'm done underwriting them." "You're saying that because you're angry. I'm saying it so there's no confusion next year. You'll change your mind." "No. Who's going to pay for the hall?" "Whoever books it. Most of the family can't afford that. Then choose a less expensive event. You're punishing everybody. I'm ending one expense. You've always paid. That's why you thought I would pay after being removed." She pushed the folded paper back into her purse. "Don't expect us to come running the next time something breaks." "I don't." She looked at me as if I had taken away the final threat she had prepared. Then she said, "Zach is barely speaking to me. That isn't mine to fix. You caused it." I stopped covering it. She turned and walked down the porch steps. Before reaching her car, she looked back. "You'll be alone if you keep doing this." I closed the door. That sentence stayed in the house after she left. It touched the fear I had spent years paying not to feel. I went into the kitchen and stood beneath Virginia's grocery pad. I could call Zachary, offer part of the balance, and make the conflict disappear for a while. Instead, I made coffee and went to work. 2 days later, I sent one message to the family mailing list. I will not organize, book, or fund future reunions. Whoever chooses to host may contact the venues and vendors directly. I didn't explain why. The people who needed to know had seen it. Several relatives replied with thanks for the years I had paid. One asked whether I could help the next organizer negotiate a hall rate. I answered, no, but Harold can explain his rates. That was the first request I refused without offering a smaller version of the same labor. The following week, Harold mailed my original release with the venue seal. He included a note saying the hall had been cleaned properly and no additional charges were due. Zachary had completed the work. He had also paid the card balance from their savings before interest began. He told me that later. The trip reservation was canceled, and the dining set stayed in the store. Megan sent 2 more reimbursement demands. I answered the first with, no reimbursement is owed. I didn't answer the second. Then she stopped contacting me. Zachary stayed silent for 11 days. On the 12th evening, his car pulled into my driveway. He came onto the porch without a box, tool, invoice, or equipment manual. I opened the door. What do you need? I asked. To talk. About the balance? No. About Megan? No. I stepped aside. He sat at the kitchen table. I poured coffee into 2 mugs, then waited. He kept both hands around his mug. I canceled your seat, he said. Megan wanted it, but I did it. I didn't answer. He continued. I knew you were asking for the chart. I kept telling you I'd send it because I hoped the problem would somehow disappear. What problem? Having to tell Megan no. And what did you expect me to do? Pay. He looked directly at me. I expected you to pay and leave. Hearing it stated plainly hurt more than any excuse. I said, why? Because you always fix things after I avoided them. He looked down again. I tried to add myself to your bank account. Nobody made me submit that request. I signed Dana's form without reading it. I let the family think you were confused because correcting Megan would have meant admitting what I'd done. He took a breath. I'm sorry. I nodded once. I hear you. Can you forgive me? Not tonight. His eyes reddened, but he didn't look away. I understand. An apology doesn't give you access to my accounts. I don't want access. It doesn't restart reunion payments. I'm not asking. It doesn't make us normal, I know. He reached into his pocket and placed his phone on the table. I sent something to the family group. He showed me the message. It said the concerns about my financial ability were unsupported. It admitted that the bank contact request came from him without my permission. It also said I had asked for records because decisions were being made in my name. Megan had not reacted to the message. Several relatives had. One wrote, "Thank you for saying this." Another asked whether I had seen it. I handed the phone back. "That was yours to correct." "I know. It matters that you did." He nodded. We finished the coffee without discussing the card balance or the reunion. When he stood to leave, he paused beside the kitchen door. "Can I come by Sunday? What needs fixing?" "Nothing." He put on his coat. "I thought we could have coffee," I said. "Come by around 10. He nodded and left. Sunday morning, Zachary arrived at 9:58. He carried 2 paper cups from a coffee shop, but nothing else. I opened the door. "I made coffee," I said. "I wasn't sure. We can save yours for later." He followed me into the kitchen. We sat across from each other and talked about road construction near Middletown. Then we discussed a restaurant that had closed on North Broad Street. Neither subject mattered. That was what made the visit different. After half an hour, I expected him to mention the card balance. He didn't. I expected him to ask about the railing, a tool, or something stored in my garage. He didn't do that either. When he left, both cups he had brought were still unopened. He took one and gave me the other. "Next Sunday?" he asked. "We'll see." He came back the following Sunday. This time, he brought nothing. We sat at the table for 40 minutes. The silences were longer, but they weren't hostile. At one point, Zachary looked toward Virginia's grocery pad. "Why do you still have that? Your mother put it there." "I know. I haven't needed the space." He smiled slightly. "She used to write notes on 3 different pads, then lose all 3. She didn't lose them. She left them where I couldn't see them, which was anywhere except that hook." I laughed. It surprised both of us. Zachary looked down at his coffee. "I miss her." "So do I." He didn't use her name to settle an argument. He didn't tell me what she would want. He just sat there and missed his mother. That counted. After the third visit, I asked whether the competency petition had gone anywhere. No, he said. Nothing was filed. Do you know that? Yes. I watched Megan shred the printed packet. What about the electronic file? She deleted it in front of me. That doesn't mean another copy doesn't exist. I know. But she agreed not to take any action or contact anyone about your finances. Did she agree because she understands why it was wrong? He took a moment before answering. No. She agreed because I told her I wouldn't support it. That was honest. Megan had not changed her mind about me. She had changed what she believed Zachary would permit. It wasn't reconciliation, but it closed the immediate threat. I kept the locks and bank instructions in place. A month after the reunion, Megan sent me an email with the subject, "Final attempt to resolve balance." She attached the card statement and asked for half. I answered with 2 words, "No reimbursement." Her reply was longer. She said I was choosing money over family, that Zachary had become difficult since the reunion, and that the public humiliation had damaged their marriage. I didn't respond. Zachary came for coffee that Sunday. "Megan emailed you," he said. "Yes." She showed me. "I'm not discussing your marriage. I'm not asking you to." "Are you asking for money?" "No." He stirred his coffee even though he hadn't added anything to it. "We canceled the trip. The refund covered part of the card, and we used savings for the rest. It's paid. All right? The dining set can wait." "Yes." He looked at me. "I'm not telling you that to make you feel guilty. Why are you telling me?" "Because I used to tell you about a problem and wait for you to solve it. I don't want you wondering what happened." That answer was better than any apology he could have repeated. A few weeks later, his heat pump stopped during a warm afternoon. I learned about it during our Sunday coffee. "What was wrong?" I asked. "The contactor failed." "Who replaced it?" "A service company." "You paid somebody?" He gave me a tired smile. "Yes, Dad, I paid somebody." "You could have called." I thought about it. "Why didn't you?" "Because I wanted to know I could handle one broken thing without turning it into your responsibility." "Did they do good work?" "I think so. I almost offered to inspect it. Instead, I said, 'Keep the invoice.' I filed it with the warranty. That counted too." The next family gathering was a small dinner at Virginia's sister's house. I almost didn't attend. Zachary called the day before. "You have a seat," he said. I didn't ask. "I know. Did you check?" "Yes." "Why?" "Because I should have checked last time." Megan was at the dinner. She greeted me politely and moved to the other side of the room. We didn't discuss the reunion or money. She didn't apologize. I didn't pretend she had. At dinner, Zachary sat beside her and across from me. He didn't spend the evening trying to make us talk. That would have been another kind of avoidance, arranging a pleasant scene instead of accepting the damage. We ate. We spoke when conversation required it. Then we left separately. That was the relationship Megan and I had afterward. Civil contact when necessary. No access to my accounts, vendors, mail, or house decisions. No private planning, no money. She never admitted that the consultant visit was wrong. She maintained that her concerns had been reasonable, even if her methods had been too aggressive. I didn't argue over the wording. The boundary didn't require her agreement. Later that summer, someone in the family group asked who would organize the next reunion. My name appeared in 2 replies before I saw the conversation. Zachary answered before I did. Dad is not funding or planning it. Whoever volunteers needs to own the cost and work. No one argued with him. A few relatives suggested a public park and a potluck. Others preferred waiting another year. I didn't research locations. I didn't offer my truck. I didn't call Harold for rates. The question remained theirs. Virginia's sister called me one evening without needing anything. She asked about my work and told me about a movie she had watched. We spoke for 20 minutes. Before hanging up, she said, "I almost asked whether you could look at my air conditioner." I laughed. "What stopped you?" "I called a repair company first." "Was it expensive?" "Yes." "Did they fix it?" "Yes." "Then you called me just to talk." "I suppose I did." That was new too. Zachary's visits became less regular after a while, but they became more natural. Sometimes he came Sunday morning. Sometimes he called on a Wednesday and asked whether I was home. He no longer began with, "Are you busy?" He said, "Want company." I learned to answer without making him provide a reason. Some visits lasted 15 minutes, others lasted 2 hours. We watched a game once. He fell asleep in the chair before halftime, and I left him there until he woke up. We still had difficult conversations. He told me Megan believed I had forced him to choose between them. I said, "Did I?" "No. I had already chosen silence. You forced me to see what it cost." I didn't answer. He continued, "I'm working on that." "How?" "When I disagree with her, I say it before the decision is made. How does that go?" "Badly." I smiled. He did too. Then he said, "But at least the argument belongs to both of us now." That was the first time he described their marriage without asking me to fix it. I didn't know whether Megan and I would ever repair our relationship. Zachary didn't promise that we would. He stopped carrying messages between us unless something practical required it. When she asked again about reimbursement, he told her my answer was final. When she said I should help plan a smaller reunion, he told her to ask me directly. She didn't ask. The $1,800 deposit stayed gone. So did the printing charge. I could afford both losses, but that didn't make them imaginary. I kept the receipts because they reminded me that boundaries often arrive after money has already left. I never funded another reunion. I never managed one either. My tools remained available when I chose to use them. I still helped people. I just started asking a question before picking up my coat. Are you asking for my company, my knowledge, or my money? Most people answered once they realized I was serious. Zachary learned fastest. One afternoon, he called and said, "I need advice, not labor. That's specific. My thermostat has 5 wires, and the replacement diagram shows 6. I explained what the extra terminal did. He installed the thermostat himself, then sent me a picture. I replied, "Looks right." He wrote, "Heat is on, house still standing." I didn't drive over to check. The porch railing remained loose through all of this. I could have repaired it in less than an hour. The screws at the lower post had worked free, and one bracket needed replacement. I kept putting other jobs ahead of it. Then I realized I was waiting to see what Zachary would do. He noticed the railing every time he came. At first, he mentioned it. "You still haven't fixed this." "I know." "Want me to help?" "No." That was the old wording. Help meant I would gather the tools, buy the bracket, explain each step, and work beside him. The next time, he asked differently. "Do you want me to fix it?" "Not today." He accepted that answer. 2 weeks passed. On a Saturday morning, his car pulled into the driveway without a call. He opened the trunk and took out a small tool bag. I met him on the porch. "What are you doing?" "Fixing the railing." I didn't ask. "I know. Why today?" "Because it's loose." He removed the lower screws and checked the wood around them. The wood was sound. He drove to a hardware store, returned with a stronger bracket and fresh screws, then finished the repair without asking me for money. I watched from the porch chair. When he tightened the last screw, he gripped the rail and pushed hard. It didn't move. He packed his tools and put them in the trunk. Then he came back up the steps. "No bill," he said. I wasn't expecting one. No broken equipment either, I noticed. He looked toward the front door. "Do you have coffee? If you've stayed with me this far, subscribe, and tell me what you would have done in my place." I went inside and filled 2 mugs. When I returned, Zachary was sitting on the top step with one hand resting against the solid post. I handed him a mug. He tested the railing once more. "That should hold for years." "I believe you." He moved over, leaving room beside him. The morning was quiet. Cars passed at the end of the street, and somebody nearby was cutting grass. Neither of us had anywhere we needed to be. Zachary took a drink and looked across the yard. I sat down beside him. Zachary and I sat with coffee beside the porch railing he had repaired himself.